Now, here's your hosts, the League Dad, Kevin, Mitchell, and Alistair.
Hello and welcome to the All In Podcast. We are talking about Worlds 2024 quarterfinals, and it was a banger. Expectations be damned, because that did not go how we all expected. We're going to talk a lot about it. We're recording this Sunday, the day of FlyQuest versus GenG just happened, so we literally just finished the quarterfinals. We never record on the day things end, but we're here because it was too good not to. How you doing, Kevin?
I'm going through it. I'm doing well. It's been crazy, going through it in a good way.
Yeah.
This was an exciting day of games. I think all of quarterfinals, besides one matchup, was pretty insane.
Yep.
So honestly, feel pretty lucky considering sometimes quarterfinals it should be the most insane probability wise because there's so many matchups, but sometimes it doesn't really deliver, and I'm glad this year did. So yeah, I'm doing well.
Yeah, sometimes the quarterfinal matchups are like the highlight of the entire tournament. Like I think kind of last year, maybe not last year as much. No, last year it was because we had like all these insane matchups. GenG got knocked out last year in quarters and stuff like that. But then we also had other years where like the quarterfinals is just like a bunch of 3-0s, and then the real tournament starts in like the semifinals or something.
Yeah.
So we've had a couple of those, but this year so far, hard to tell whether it was the best series happened all tournament because it's still going on. But let's just talk about it. Elephant in the room. FlyQuest versus GenG. It actually went to 5 games, which I think is unreal. We didn't win in the end, which I actually think was really sad because of how close we were. And especially considering that like
the circumstances,
like no one expected us to get there. Like we were playing so well, but the fact that we even believed, the slogan of 2024 Worlds has been "Make them believe," and we actually lived up to it. Sometimes the script writers, like they are on point, and this year they were on point. Putting Masu in the music video for Linkin Park, fighting against Chovy, like the script writes itself in the most amazing way. Because that's kind of what exactly happened, and we all believed. We all genuinely believed. So yeah, talk me through it. What's going on with you?
Yeah, so I mean, we all predicted basically it's 3-0. Like it's like you don't really cheese these guys. They have the champ pool. There's gonna be all the options that worked against Hanwha and just like worked in general. Like they're not gonna be scared by it because there's so much experience and so much hand stiff, right?
Yep.
And despite all that, like it really felt like FlyQuest was leading the tempo the whole series. Like I mean, yeah, there were some games they got Giga Stomp, but
Yep.
it's rare for an upset to happen. It's even rarer for it to be, how do you say, led by the Western team, as in like we're up. So at Misfits was the last time that I remember where it was like, oh, we were up 2-1 and then it just collapsed.
Yeah.
And that was 2017 against SKT. So
Yep.
it was wild. I really liked some parts, didn't like others, but in terms of like what we did. But all this to say though, they highly overperformed our expectations or anyone's expectations, maybe even their own. And I think it is a new era for NA. I think, well, literally it's a new era considering, the new league is starting.
Yeah.
But also, I think it's like things like this bring hope, right? Like we've never done this against Korea. We've actually done the biggest upset NA's ever done before this was against IG.
Yeah.
MSI. But at Worlds, against a top Korean team, not like, we beat Afrika 3-0. Okay, well, like, yeah, great. But also like not the same. It really isn't.
Yeah, that one wasn't the same at all. So I think it's pretty appropriate to talk about history. So we'll talk about some history here, and let's bring up those past upsets because they were brought up on the broadcast for good reason. The first one you mentioned was SKT versus Misfits, right? That was probably the most similar series to this, where if you talk about the timeline of things, this was an era where Western teams never contested Eastern teams, right? Like there was a small blip in the radar in 2015 when Origin and Fnatic made it to semifinals. That was with
Mm-hmm.
Huni and Reignover. That was with Expeke and Sven, or Niels, OG Niels back then.
Yeah.
So that was a time when the West contested the East, but then there was a big drought in like 2016 and most of 2017. It was really not a consideration, but 2017 Misfits, they took SKT, this team that looked completely unstoppable, looked like the absolute best team in the world. This is when their peak of their dynasty, right? 2017 is when SKT would actually fall from their dynasty, break their streak, and it was off of unorthodox picks. And I think that's what's the most similar thing about us is that we took the series off because of like seriously unorthodox picks and an unorthodox play style. We go back to like MSI and other G2 series versus also SKT. The way they beat them was unorthodox picks, and just playing their own game, doing super weird stuff like Pike Top, Yasuo bot, Syndra bot, stuff like that. So, yeah, I think that's the name of the game. That's the thing I want to highlight because the thing that's different between, let's say, C9 2018 or even G2 2018 against RNG or TL versus IG in 2019 is that we had some like innovations, but really we kind of just like played their game, and there was a bit of like the other teams were at a low point, kind of, right? Like I think Africa was at a definite, Korea was at a different low point, and Africa was like the embodiment of that. And then IG 2019, I mean, I think that TL roster was just special, and they just took them toe to toe. We didn't really like change the meta with that series, right? We kind of just played the game normally, and we just managed to come out on top against IG.
Yeah.
But this series was like we're in a world where a team like GenG, nobody even thinks about upsetting them, right? The only team that can take down GenG is like a BLG or a Hanwha Life, right? Not even T1 is considered to be able to take down GenG. Yet we did it. Like we were in the new age of League of Legends. Modern era upsets are super super rare. They're pretty much exclusively only G2 territory. So for NA to finally do that for ourselves, I mean, we had our own G2 versus T1 at MSI, basically, right? It was that close. It was insane. So I
Mm-hmm.
just ranted off about history a lot, but yeah, I think the emotions are like a big deal about why this was so insane in the history. Um,
Yeah, and then to on the emotions topic, we gotta talk about this, man. Chovy's a choker. He was not, he wasn't in the series like until the end. Has
yeah.
Smolder really good laning. Tristana has some okay like positioning, but like first 3 games, oh he did dodge some games with Castlin, but I didn't feel like his Ari did anything game one.
Nope.
I didn't feel like Silas looked anything like the OP Silas we've been seeing from all the other really good mid laners.
Yep.
And like I wouldn't say that he was choking in the sense of like he was like a really generationally bad performance. Like we've seen some bad performances from Knight, for example. We see some bad performances from other, but no, this is better than some of his tournaments. But I'm just like, we watched this whole series. I'm like, where was he? Like I felt like Keen had an amazing game. I feel like Canyon had some takeover games on Italy. Like sure, but their superstar mid laner against Quad it wasn't a huge gap really.
No, he was pretty invisible. Yeah.
Yeah, if he lost, like we all know what would have been said, right? And we're
Yep.
still saying kind of he's not necessarily choking in the sense that you would think, right? A spectacular fail. Well, he has done that too. We mentioned it last week, but I just felt like I'm like, wow, you got your superstar mid laner and you put him on scaling picks because he can't play mid. Cool.
I definitely do think that people are going to call out GenG, especially for the game 5 going over to maximum scaling to beat the scary FlyQuest, right? They pulled out their ultimate Exodia card, right? They pulled out their trump card where they're like, you know what? We know that if we do this, we can beat you guys no matter what because the way the draft kind of panned out, right? The way Smolder is designed is it's kind of unbeatable if you play it the way GenG and Chovy does. And yeah, they had to, right? We pushed them that far, and I gotta agree on the Chovy point. At least I don't know why, because at MSI, Chovy was a monster. Chovy was a Giga God, so it's not the international stage. It's literally just Worlds. As soon as you get into the bracket stage at Worlds, and he's on a big stage, he does kind of just fall apart. Not fall apart. he tones down, right? I think for like 95% of every year. This year, last year, the world's year before that. I don't know how many years. He spends the entire season dominating and the entire season smurfing on people with better laning, better CS, but also outplaying you in team fights and skirmishes and having a huge champion pool. Literally, like all the tenets you need to be a great player, and he didn't have any of that this series. Yeah, I think his one point of brilliance that I was impressed by was the cast. That was actually a really sick pick. That actually made me hyped about this series, and that I was like, okay, you know what, GenG, when they're pushed to it, you know, we slapped him game one. GenG came back game two, like, okay, we can cook too, okay? It doesn't look like the nicest cook, right? Nidalee Cassidy is probably the grossest, like, mid jungle duo you can think of. But they did it in the right spot, right? It was a very rare situation where it made a lot of sense. And so I respected GenG for that. But, I kind of lost it in the game five. You know, they respect them for winning. I don't respect them. They had no honor when they won, though, right?
They picked Smolder, bruh.
Yep, no honor in their game five win. Yep, disgusting. But I mean, to be fair, they prevented themselves from like millions of years of like getting flamed on the internet. So they'll get flamed on the internet for picking Smolder. Much better than getting flamed on the internet for losing to NA in a best of 5. So
true. That is true. We had him on the ropes. We should talk about the picks a little bit as well.
Okay, let's just start from game 1 and talk about the picks. So go right ahead. Yeah.
Let's go ahead. So FlyQuest picked Galio top, was a really good counter to the multi-AP threat solo laners from GenG. GenG went Rumble, Skarner, Ahri, Jinx, and Leona. And important to note, there were also a lot of, I would say like Jinx here is an interesting pick. I don't necessarily like it as much, but I think they were like, okay, there's a Seraphine core. How are we going to really bust through that? We need Ezreal's off the table, which I don't think Ezreal would have been good either. And Ashe is picked, right? Like, I get it. But I think Jinx just felt tough in this comp. Thought Galio was really smart as a pick. And I think the Seraphine was like, I don't like Seraphine, but I think in this specific scenario, it was so busted. Ahri couldn't even break through shields. They pretty much, their damage was just completely mitigated over and over. And then they took tempo with Xin Zhao and Ashe. The Ashe outs didn't land that much, but Ashe was still playing really well.
Yeah, I gotta point out the Xin Zhao I think was a big deal because this is what we talked about with like TL and like Umti, right? When TL and Umti were seeing success, it was because they're getting high tempo early game junglers. A champion like Nocturne, right, can farm really fast, can pressure you in the early game. You can't really contest him in the river. He gets priority on jungle and scuttle crabs. And I think that this is something that FlyQuest kind of fell away from. That maybe was a bad idea, where the Xin Zhao got them so much prio early game that it gave them like a stable pathway for a strong mid game. Because Seraphine mid lane is pretty weak, right? Like she doesn't really do much. It's really when she starts hitting like 1-2 items where her shields get really massive and she becomes like a team fight menace. So they use the Xin Zhao and they use the Galio counterpick into Rumble to kind of like just be really strong and stable in the early game. You don't really want to fight FlyQuest. But then you have Seraphine and Ashe to kind of pull up and be like, okay, well, now all of a sudden you just can't do any damage because they're playing like kind of like AoE like dot champions with like Rumble, and they don't have like that big burst, right? That you really need. Like, you know, it would have been different if I think if GenG had like I don't know, just a much more burstier comp, but their comp was very like, low commitment, middling damage. Like this is a comp that GenG likes to do with the Ahri and like Leona and stuff. So I like that from FlyQuest. They just got really tanky.
It's also a rare game for a Western jungler. I mean, we have had a few, but Inspire was like up 2.4k at Xin Zhao on Canon. Skarner's been the OP pick of the tournament so far in groups Swiss stage. So like Inspire was playing great tempo that game. He had so much control. It's a 14-3 game, but it was very stressful though, because like GenG had a lot of gold, and it was not that far of a gold diff until the end, and we really weren't sure. They were like pulling a dragon out of nowhere, and I was like, oh shoot, we might not get to soul in time. Okay, cool. We're still going to be able to do this, right? I mean, getting Mountain Dragon made it impossible for GenG to win, but I'm not going to say it's luck. I think it was a jungle diff, honestly, as well.
I think, and then Inspired actually, he did a bunch of interviews right after the series, and I watched like most of them.
I haven't
And
watched them yet. Wow.
okay, you should watch him for sure. They're pretty interesting. He's very matter of the fact. He's like not mental boomed at all. He was like, "Oh my god, we almost did it." But he was saying in game one that FlyQuest like they just straight out outdrafted him, and then they didn't perform as well as he expected, and then it was at that point where he realized he actually started to believe, because I think his mentality, which is fair, was that like he's not gonna say this to his rookies, right? But in the back of his head, he's like, well, this is fucked. Like, we're doomed, right? But as soon as they won that game one and they realized that they could outdraft him and that GenG's hands weren't like this overwhelming thing of like tails, right? Like, GenG's kind of like a thing of legends, right? They feel like they can do everything. And then they went and faced them and they realized they're just humans. They make mistakes too. Um, so I do think that GenG, they just had a bad draft and they didn't really have the hands. And I think the notable thing about this win against FlyQuest is it could have been cleaner. I think one big mistake that FlyQuest made in game one was they got this like big pick in mid lane where they killed a bunch of them, and they had the choice to go Baron now or Mountain Soul Dragon was spawning in like a minute. They
Yep.
went to
The last
do
one. Yep.
yeah, they went to go do Baron, and they actually had a gold negative like Baron power play because GenG picked up like 3 objective bounties and a dragon, and it was like kind of like a bad play. So that was like a weird situation where I felt like I actually think the correct play for FlyQuest was to do nothing and just set up for dragon and just push all their side waves out and just control, take the soul, don't trade anything, don't take Baron, but then give them 3 objective bounties, right? And the dragon. So the amazing thing is we played against the best team in the tournament, and we can find so many rooms of obvious improvement that FlyQuest can look back and immediately be like, oh yeah, we could have done that better, and then we definitely could have won even harder or more later on, right? So I always love thinking about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a great call out. I think they got a little too excited. Baron drew them in, but they were able to rebound. I was like really worried when that play happened. I was like, oh no, not this again. Like,
Yeah.
because it was only a 3K goal difference for most of the game, and I was like, oh man, GenG's macro is crazy if they're able to keep the goal this close when it's like 8-1, 7-0.
Yeah, we were stomping them, and yet it's always the scary thing about Korean teams, right? Is like we've had good early games against Korean teams for years, actually, and we've had like leads, but it always falls apart, and the team fights always falls apart in the mid game. But this time it finally didn't, right? It didn't fall apart. We actually we took a hit in the mid game, and we bounced back and still won, which I think is a big deal for the West growth, is to translate our leads into actual wins. So let's go to game 2. This is where GenG, they finally cooked some of their stuff too. We cooked a little too hard. I do think our draft was shit, right? I don't think I liked. I think Orianna and Syndra, that everybody was talking about, those are going to be the 2 primary mid laners before coming into the tournament because they both got buffed and all the AD carries got nerfed, right? And I think what's actually turning out is that they're bait picks. Orianna and Syndra do not have great win rates this tournament. And I guess, I don't know, Quad is a good Orianna player in history, but I do think we kind of got baited by the Orianna. It's just really not that useful these days. And I think the main reason why it's not useful, in my opinion, is because they don't have dashes. I think that's a huge deal for mid lane right now at this tournament, is not as having a mid laner with a dash. And we saw Chovy. Oh my god, he got away with some very slim margins. The amount of time he lived with 1 HP off of a gank was insane. Just like level 3, I think. Quad burned Chovy's flash, and we were all so hyped. Like, we were all in that, like, it's game 2, we just beat them, and we're just burning flashes, we're chunking people early on. It felt so good. But then we got snapped back right to reality when, like, I think Inspired ganked Chovy, and he lived with 1 HP and then died instead, and it was like, oh, well, it's over. That's casting with blue buff and first blood. So that was pretty brutal. But really fun game. We got to see Peak Canyon. Any comments on this game too?
Come back out again.
Yep.
I think this one as Nunu was fine in my opinion, because when you're playing against Nidalee, you have to have a certain tempo of jungler, and if you don't pick those tempo of jungler, you will get run over.
Mm-hmm.
Generically, but it was against Castlin, so I think it was a cool spot for Castlin. He really did get a little lucky, but it was still good play, all things considered. in the sense of like these were slim margins. Honestly, at this point in the series, my emotions were all over the place because it's the classic, we win game one against a team we should never win game one against, and then the rest of the series doesn't even look like a series.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think if we're gonna tackle some of FlyQuest's like mistakes, I think they made a mistake banning Nocturne, and they should have banned the Ash. Ash ended up being a huge pick this series, and it kind of went under the radar. I also think it was very telling that GenG was gonna first pick Ash when they banned Skarner on blue side, which meant they're not gonna first pick Skarner, so they have a different first pick in mind. It was the Ash. I think it was maybe they didn't see it coming. It felt pretty obvious to me. And the Ash, was really impactful. Because what's a big deal with Ash is Hawkshot, right? If you have the best jungler in the world in Canyon, and he's playing Nidalee, hyper aggressive early game, you're playing Nunu, and you have Hawkshot. It's pretty insane. I also think that GenG, they did that thing at the lane swap where they just have the AD carry 1v1 the enemy top laner, and there's a lot of times where it doesn't matter. Like we've seen it where a Jin lane swaps and he's playing against Cassante and it actually looks favorable for Cassante, or even a Cassante playing against, an Ezreal and 1v2ing us in the bot lane. That was pretty unfortunate for us. But like when it's Ashe 1v1 against a Renekton, right? I don't think we thought enough about the matchups between, if we lane swap, what's the matchup between the AD carry and our top laner? And I think Bwipo had a really big problem dealing with Ashe for most of this game. It's not something you'd normally think about, but it was a big deal, right? Renekton and Bwipo on Renekton not getting ahead or stable in the game. He was just Keen's bitch. Like Jax was just owning him on the side lane, starting from literally from the beginning of the game, once the lane swap was over. So yeah, I do think that was kind of a mistake in draft for FlyQuest.
And
then
I was okay with the look, but yeah, I also thought it was a mistake in the sense of like it's just hard to outdraft a team with that many options, as we were saying.
Yeah.
That many games in a row. So I was like okay with this game because I think the Casson threw off a lot, and then Italy is just so tough to draft against when it's someone of that caliber.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I feel like in the moment I was like I already feel like I had the solution already too, because I was like listening to Cagel's stream. He kind of like pinpointed maybe it was wrong a bit too. But if FlyQuest had banned Ashe instead of Nocturne, and then I think they needed to early rotate Inspired Jungle, because he got pinched, right? There's literally like 5 jungle bans. I think they should have gotten him Xin Zhao or a higher tempo early damage jungler. If it's not Xin Zhao, the Nunu is a high tempo jungler, but it's not like this big dueling. Like you're never gonna duel a Nidalee as a Nunu.
Skirmisher. Yeah,
it's not a skirmisher.
To snowball the early game in terms of fights. Objective wise, Nunu's still great.
Yeah,
lots of control.
Yeah,
but this didn't feel like when you're against Nidalee. Old Nidalee is actually a matchup, but I just don't think they had the power either behind it.
Like if you hit,
they failed the ganks. Partially.
But and it's also if you hit a snowball onto Nidalee, like you're not one-shotting her with Nunu Orianna, right? I do think they should have gone something like a CC mid laner with like Lee Sin or Xin Zhao jungle, and that would have taken care of the Nidalee. Like that's a usual combo, right? But maybe they didn't have something like that for quad. Like I even would have liked Syndra over Orianna, honestly, just for that stun pre-6. You stun a Nidalee, you land your damage as your AD jungler like Xin Zhao or Lee Sin or Jarvan or something, and then boom, you just go. But they didn't think of that, and that's okay though. FlyQuest, we still love you. Let's go to game 3. This is where it went from like the series was okay, we got a good game 1 and the GenG's online, right? This is where when you win game 2, you're like, oh, it's no longer a fluke. This is real life. We're in actual upset territory. FlyQuest is here to play. Like I think game 1 being like that was like, okay, they got a big draft lead. You can make excuses for GenG. Winning game 2 like how we won game 2, where it was actually really close for most of the game, that was when it's no longer a fluke. We're actually like competitors. We're actually at the top with these guys. So yeah, talk to me about your impressions of game 3, because this is another just cooking. We're cooking in draft once again.
Yeah. So game 3, again, no one plays Urgot. So well, almost no one plays Urgot, and we picked Zeri in this patch mid. I looked at it, I was like very skeptical. I was like, I get what the idea is here, but if we fall behind, like, what are we gonna do?
Yeah.
How are we gonna engage? Obviously, there's Rakan, but honestly, I saw Silas Lockdown. I was like, oh, it's pretty doomed. This is like in good hands. This is like so terrifying.
Yeah.
So that was how I felt about draft. But I was like, after the game started going, it wasn't just it wasn't about draft per se, but like Masu he's so crazy. Like,
Yeah.
I've been saying this for a while, which is that Jan is the better international AD carry, but at least at this tournament, there's no contest, right? He has solidified himself as, at least, like, depending on the patch, these two are shining. Was it crown jewel of AD carry? Like, these are the
crown
people
jewels
who are bringing us. I also said to my friend, only half joking, like, I'm pretty sure that one Masu play by what is it, blue buff wall near Baron, where Renekton comes over the wall near the end of the game, super fed on our character. I think that play alone was more mechanical skill at Worlds than Double If's whole career.
Okay.
So it was
okay.
And now, not to put someone down, even though I definitely did.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Actually, to praise him, it was incredible. Not just him, but not in terms of, like, is it hard to hit Zanya's and ult, right? But more so in terms of the awareness to have in that moment, because basically he had no vision there. Renekton comes out, he's about to click stun, he's about to get Sejuani followed up on. Like, there was so many things that were about to just be a disaster.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen. He blocked it. His teammates really, really responded well as well. Like, it wasn't just him. They blocked for him, they CC'd, they made it possible, right? But honestly, that was such an incredible play, because that was the moment where I was like, oh boy, if you mess up here, the classic NA at Worlds, when the bright lights, right? All the pressures here, NA 80 carat dies, gives up 1,000 gold, Baron goes away, it's over.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen. He played incredible. I don't think he died a single time that game.
No, he didn't.
He carried, and Quad also carried too.
Yeah.
Without Quad, this comp doesn't work. If you don't have him flashing forward as Zeri and, like, finding those angles, it was on a knife's edge over and over and over. I also think Pays is a fraud. I'm sorry. Like, that early 2v2 death, and then just, like, multiple times where I'm watching Ezreal Ian and just, like, get picked by, like, Urgot without flash grab in endgame. Like, I'm sorry, is this really your savior of AD carry, and he plays like this against NA? I guess maybe we put him under too much pressure, but, like, I think Pays isn't necessarily heralded as the best AD carry in the world always, but there are definitely people, LCK included, who say, oh, well, he's the number one team, so he's all team first pro or second, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think if Masu was, if Masu could speak Korean and he played in this league, are we really saying that Masu was not the better AD carry here, like, this whole series on average?
No, I'm saying it.
I think I'm saying that. I don't think that's, like, even controversial, right? And that's the thing, right? Like, you can have the nameplate, you can have the team, but, like, if I had Chovy and Cannon and Keen as my players, and even Lehens, honestly, compared to Busio, I'm sorry, it's not that close. I think Masu could show something. We have Jojo Pyong, which we'll talk about later, going to be an EU import.
Yeah.
I think that when the teams look different and the players you have on you look different, you can show off a lot more of your potential.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I do think Pays just hasn't really performing at this Worlds in general. He performed very well at MSI. He was a god at MSI.
He did.
But yeah, he hasn't really been performing, and he was kind of anti-clutch in the LCK finals. He was one of the big reasons why Hanwha Life actually won in the LCK finals, is because Viper,
which just sounds great until you look at what team he's on.
yeah, right. Like, Pays is. I don't think people ever actually consider Pays as the best AD carry in the world. Like, he's never really been in the conversation. You always hear Viper or Ruler or Elk in that conversation, and not even really Elk, right? It's just really Viper and Ruler. So, And Guma. Sorry,
But they,
no
in the
slander to
same league,
Guma.
they still get first team All Pro.
Yeah. And that's
times.
for his right. And it's because
So the Koreans consider him the best.
no,
ADK in
they
the best
don't.
league.
They don't. They don't consider him the best. They consider him. They get the regular season LCK award is not the same as the best. Okay, the LCK regular season award is given to the first place team in LCK. That's just like their tradition or their trend. But if you talk to anybody, LCK analysts, any League of Legends analyst, it's all the list is always Viper, Gumayushi, Ruler, stuff like that, right? Pays doesn't even make the first top 3. So Pays, still has a lot to grow, but he has that GenG kind of vibe, right? He has the GenG sort of label on him, where it's the same with Chovy, it's the same. It was the same with Peanut and Doran, where it's like regular season dominators, domestic dominators, but when they get to the really high highs, they can't really perform the way they do at the regular season. Like GenG, I mean, besides the time they won in 2017 or they made it to finals in 2016, like for a long time, even when they had Ruler, they're considered a team of like just international international choke. And I think Pays has been molded into that.
To bomb out Samsung in general, either dominates or bombs out.
Yeah, and I think that this org just emanates that. Like it's a if you were to put Pays in another team, like if you were to just stick Pays into like I don't know SKT or some other top tier team, like Pays would definitely start to look different. But there's something about this org, the players on it and the coaching staff, like Mata's on the coaching staff. Mata was on the old Samsung White, right? Mata has basically been on this organization his whole life, besides the time he was in China and stuff like that, right? This org has something about them that just doesn't perform as well as they do internationally as they do at literally 95% of the year. And Canyon, I think, like this is why they got Canyon, right? Like they got Canyon because Canyon is a guy where usually it doesn't really matter what's going on. He always performs. He's known as the clutch guy who maybe isn't as great in the regular season on his years on Dan1. And they pick up Canyon and they finally make it to an MSI championship, right?
That's true.
And I think that this series kind of showed a little bit. Canyon is not peak Canyon, I think, when he won on Dan1 and stuff like that, but he's still really, really good because this is something Peanut would never do. It's pick Nidalee and say, okay, my team is kind of choking. My team isn't really playing at their best. I'm going to take the game in my hands and play my pocket pick and win the game for us. So I got to respect Canyon for that, and I got to respect GenG like seeking out a player like this where I like if GenG wins Worlds this year, I will think it'll be off the back of Canyon saying that I will overcome GenG and not be a choker. Like I refuse to be a choker because this series was almost choked away by GenG, if we're being honest. Like, yes, FlyQuest played insanely well, but it could have gone bad. Yeah, it could have gone really bad, right?
It was close.
It was
like even if Chovy or Pays play like a generationally good game later on, they wouldn't have made it this far without Canyon. Like that's just a fact.
Yeah, no, Canyon, I think, is going to be the guy if, like, let's say GenG beats T1 next series, or if GenG wins Worlds, right? I'm going to be like, man, Canyon is actually clutch enough to like save this team of chokers because, yeah, Chovy and Pays and before Peanut and Doran, they are just international chokers. Like they really are, and it's not even international. It's just worlds. They're just world chokers. Peanut and Doran. We're gonna talk about them. They are for sure world chokers. Like you can't deny it. Like we can't deny it, right? You spend years on GenG choking internationally. You finally move to a different organization. You finally beat your previous organization in the LCK finals, and you just played pretty poorly in the quarterfinals. Once again to get knocked out. So we went on a tangent on GenG. It's fine. There's only 4 teams left in the tournament. We're allowed to go on tangents on them. So, but let's continue. Once again, I'm praising FlyQuest. Man, the Zeri build had me very worried. I'm just gonna be honest. Okay, I'm glad it worked out. Stridebreaker Grasp is like that's one of those builds where if Quad wasn't like aggressively lane dominant, which he was, thank goodness, literally poking, you have to get a lot of grasp procs to make this build works, because otherwise if you don't, you have a useless keystone and you do no damage and you're not tanky and you have a useless item in Stridebreaker that is just really not that effective. But because he got so tanky, because he was so aggressive with the grass procs, the Stridebreaker actually works because you can actually sit there and tank people and you can slow them and you can AoE them, right? Like it's like a remember the old build where Zeri used to go Titanic, Hydra,
Yeah,
and
Hexproof,
Trinity Force?
Titanic, and
Yeah.
a bunch
Triforce and
of
stuff.
just a bunch of stuff that looks sacrilegious, really.
Yeah.
But
And then this is like I think a small shout out to that where Zeri is this mosquito, right? Like in her old build she was OP because she was too tanky and you could never get away from her and she's just mosquitoing you AoE. This is like a little bit of shout out where the build doesn't work unless you actually get like ahead enough. And then the Zeri got ahead in terms of grass procs and she was actually like able to be tanky enough and yeah, he engaged. He was just jumping in there, getting slows on people and like tanking stuff, and it worked. So shout out to Quad, insane Zeri game. I remember when he got a pentakill against Team Liquid on Zeri. Sorry, Kevin, but
I remember too. I didn't think it would work internationally. You know, like
yeah,
lots of stuff. Fiora dominated domestically for Cloud9.
no,
Does
did
not
not
work
work
like that.
Yep, nope. And I gotta say, we didn't even play this game perfectly cleanly, right? That's the beautiful thing about this, about the West and FlyQuest and G2 is like, there's so much we can improve on, and if we do improve those things, we just win. We just win the series, guys. Like we're so close to it. We just, gotta find that extra little oomph to clean things up. And the Korean teams and the Asian teams are very fallible. They're very beatable, and they shouldn't be. That's the thing we were talking about last podcast, and we've been talking about it years, is that the Korean teams and the Chinese teams should not be beatable. They play on single-digit ping. We play on 60 ping. Man, it's not fair.
It's not fair.
It's not fair at all.
And we have a worse server. Not just like ping, we just have worse players.
We have a way, way smaller server than both EU and Korea, right? EU has a massive server compared to NA, and Korea and China have like unprecedentedly large servers compared to NA. And yet, how are we able to take almost 5 games against the best team in the world? It's because we have talent. We're really smart. We have bright minds. And that's where we came out ahead. And I think that game 3 and game 1 were a testament to that we were really smart. But I do think in game 4, this is where the cracks started to show. GenG, we gave GenG what they wanted, right? So the difference between Asian teams and Western teams is if you give the Asian teams the meta draft, they've played it at a higher quality for more hours. Like, it's not really comparable, right? This draft from GenG versus Fly in game 4, where it's like Cassante and Tristana and like Nidalee, and we're playing Renekton, Sejuani, Orianna, Ezreal, Rakan. Like GenG will never lose to us on this.
Nope.
It wasn't close, right? Because they've played against a million teams that are better than us a million different times on one ping, on single digit ping, right? That's just not fair. So I do think that FlyQuest, they made a mistake even like entertaining the idea of playing a meta draft. Just a big mistake. I don't think that they should have ever considered it. And they did it. And then, we lost game 4 and we kind of lost some momentum, right? We had to go to a game 5 where we got checkmated with the Smolder Yone trade. So,
it's not just game 4 we went standard. Game 2, we only picked
Nunu. Yeah,
right?
it was
it's the
standard.
same draft. It's Renekton, Ori, Ezreal, Rakan. And we saw how, maybe they chalked it up to we didn't win early, right? So because we didn't win early and those screwed up, that's why the compliment worked. But I was looking at like, dude, imagine if we just cooked every game this series, right?
Yep.
It might not even get to game 5. Like, I don't know, right? Like, I actually really liked. Okay, let me 2 steps because we're about to talk about game 5 now.
Yeah.
I appreciate that they picked what they picked in the spirit of things. I think this comp was extremely hard to pull off. I was like watching, I was like,
You're talking about game 5, right?
Yeah, game 5.
Yeah, game 5 draft.
I like that you picked these things that I've never seen pick, and then there was a core of like Yone and Kalista. Like there were characters you are good at, right? That can carry. Mm-hmm. Now, cool. But then I like thought about like, how is this gonna work? Like, what amount of things do you have to do correctly to play this comp? So, if they played with that spirit in game 5 and in game 3, and even in game 1 with the Seraphine pick and the Galio top, every game, there's a world we 3-1.
Yeah.
Or 3-2, or at least I don't feel this weird feeling of regret, I guess. No,
I regret game 4. I think FlyQuest regrets
it just
game
felt
4.
like we gave it
Yeah.
away. I was like,
Yeah.
how do you see that, game 1 and 3 you've won, you have some weird picks, some weird angles, and you went for the most standard draft maybe possible.
Yeah. And we gave them
with bands.
And we gave them like momentum too, right? We gave GenG, we knocked GenG off of their feet. It's like we're boxing, right? We knocked them off their feet with a haymaker to the face, like picking like like Zeri mid or something like that. But then right in game 4, we bring them back to standard. We give them Cassante and we let like Keen like this is a choker team where we have to play. Like, we're not just playing the game, we're gambling. We're playing against, like, the enemy team, right? We're playing against Chovy's choking international record here.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to see some all chatted, right? Like, that's how we really need to, like, take this. Or we need to play a little dirty because the odds are not fair. It is not even playing
Korean.
Yeah, learn some Korean. Like, I honestly think, we're going to go on a little tangent here, APA not all chatting all of Worlds was a huge detriment. Like, I'm not even coping when I say that APA all chatting is one of his reasons why he's a good player. It's one of his superpowers. Like, playing chat is an actual strategy in the game. If you've played solo queue, you know that you can win games off of all chat. And I think it's an underrated idea. I don't think a lot of people are going to consider that like playing the game. But chat is enabled in League of Legends for a reason, and it's because you can get strategical advantages. Like, chat has always been a part of the game, so I do think APA should have all chatted all worlds long. It was his brand. If anything, to get higher viewership and to get more likes on Twitter, at least you're playing your same game too, right? So I would have liked that as well. And I wonder if FlyQuest, they had to realize that they're playing against GenG and they're playing against the players. They're not just playing against like another game, another team to play against. Like,
exactly, right. You have to, and it felt like they did at times, right? Like they understood, hey, this Seraphine draft's probably going to throw them off. Like, what are they going to do against Seraphine Galio? Like, how are you going to get to the Ashe with your dog Ari comp?
Yep.
Ari Rumble, like it's not going to do
damage.
Anything, right? It's very low damage.
Yep.
So the Jinx was a good idea, but pace has to be better than our AD carry to actually make that work.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any AD carry you could actually pick in that draft that would help. That shit was so doomed.
I agree. And that's why I said Jinx was a good idea in the sense of like, I mean, you had no choices. You're like, you guys got out drafted hard.
Yeah. If anything, I would have liked just Samira more, right? Samira, you either one-shot them or you do nothing. Like, because, I don't know, I want to see something. True. But anyway, let's talk about this FlyQuest draft, because we kind of, let's just stick about to game 5 here, okay? Like, I do think they cooked hard, but the set was a really bad idea. I think I like that they cooked. Sorry, I sneezed. Bwippo's cursing me. But I don't think the set made any sense. It didn't really fit in the draft. Like, there's no reason to pick set there, right? The only thing I can see about picking set is because they had a Skarner or a Maokai that you could yeet into the enemy team. But, like, if that's the only reason why you're picking set, you can pick... There's a lot of stuff that can do stuff like that, right? Like, so I think they should have picked something with, like, more backline access instead of the set. Something that can just, like, actually just, like, get on top of the Smolder or the Ziggs. Like, I don't know. It's probably not a Bwippo champion, but, like, just Camille, right? Camille makes a lot of sense or something like that.
Set is definitely a Bwippo champion. Camille's not, unfortunately. Camille's one of those characters when I see
Rengar
it on a good player.
Yeah.
Oh.
Rengar
Rengar in a lane swap is really sad.
It's true. Rengar in a lane swap is terrible, actually.
Bwippo played so well in some of those ganks. Like, I played him so much, but he dodged multiple ganks early game, and I got mild hopium. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
He played all of them.
And that was well played. It didn't end up mattering because he was so useless in team fights and skirmishes. But I mean, I don't know. There's also, like, let's think of other like Bwippo like champions that could have worked. I think a Mordekaiser could have worked, right?
I would have loved to see Mordekaiser, Swain.
Hard to get backline access. See, I'm trying to pick a like kind of low execution mechanical champions that have backline access, right? So like Mordekaiser, you just click on the Ziggs and he can do nothing. Malphite, right? You just click on the enemy carries and you make them flash or they're dead, sort of thing.
That's true.
Like
There is a Smolder too. I forgot.
yeah,
Smolder Swain's not a good matchup.
no, yeah, and I
Also,
think
I give
sucks.
credit to that Maokai pick. That Maokai pick hard like screws with fiddlesticks.
Yeah,
You just can't get over a wall, especially against a team as meticulous GenG. Like, how are you supposed to?
there's so much vision everywhere.
It's unplayable.
Yeah.
Essentially.
I also think Lehen's actually clutched up pretty hard in the series in Game 4 and Game 5 with the Maokai support. Just long range Maokai ultis is pretty freaking broken. Like that the champ's ultimate is very strong. But yeah, I think we needed a bit more different cooking from FlyQuest in Game 5 to make this work because they saw the Smolder, right? The Yone and Fiddlesticks can work into Smolder because it's big AoE CC, it's lots of damage. I think that all works. But I do think also, like, I know Masu picking the Callista was both to get more engaged, to pile on, and also a takeaway from Pays. But I was kind of just thinking, like, what if we just put him on Kai'Sa? Isn't he a god at Kai'Sa? Isn't he literally one of like the world's best on Kai'Sa at this tournament? I would have loved to see that. Just stick Masu on Kai'Sa and enable him. Like we have all of this cooking and all of this like stuff going on in the kitchen, but then really what the strategy could have been is we're just distracting you from the actual dessert, the actual meal at the end, which is the Kai'Sa, which is Masu getting to a lot of items and just one-shotting you. Because Kai'Sa, alongside Smolder, is one of the best scaling champions in the entire game. Smolder, as OP as he is, it doesn't matter if he gets hit by a couple Kai'Sa Ws, right? He just dies. So I would have liked that. I thought that the Kai'Sa might have been a good angle there. And then you just lane swap away from the Callista, maybe. Other than that, I think the gameplay from FlyQuest in that Game 5 was pretty poor too. It was just a really slow game. There wasn't enough action, right? I do think that like the they should have recognized that Quad was having a rough time into Chovy in the lane.
Fiddle
and he
hadn't ulted after like 17 minutes in the game. It was
and
the
he,
latest first blood of the whole tournament.
Yep. And he also was sitting on that ignite and he was clearing without smite for like a solid like 12 minutes or
4
something.
Minutes? 12 minutes? Really? I know he switched early, but
he switched really early and he didn't ignite. There was no one to fight. He didn't ignite anybody. And he went all the way from switching the first time from smite to ignite to finishing his jungle item, as in getting like 20 camps. And then not using his ignite at all without
that's
smite.
Quite a decision of all time.
Yeah. So I think Inspired kind of like messed that up, where if he had just kept smite, that's literally like, I don't know. He could have had so much more tempo. He was power farming. And if he just had smite, he could have been more fed, had more camps, had taken away more camps from the Skarner, had more tempo in general, could have gone for more ganks early, right? Okay, you don't have ignite for the gank, but you have an extra amp tone. Probably makes up the difference, right? So I think that was a big mistake from Inspired. And I also think just not literally just ganking at level 6. Like what he should have done is just hit 6 and pretended he was a Nocturne and just fucking ganked. Get ultimate hunter stacks. Just start pressuring the map, right? Don't play standard and slow and let the Smolder and Zig scale. Just start fighting. Just start beating them down. You have a set, you have a Yone, you have chain CC, you have single target CC. So yeah, I think they messed up. Yeah, in that
I agree.
Gameplay.
But again, I forgive it. I just wish that every game had weird, wacky ideas like that instead of 3 out of 5.
Yeah, and I wish we had the gameplay to back it up every time. And I also think
they're a young team, so honestly,
no, they did right. This is what we have to talk about, right? We are so proud of this team because they did so well, and there's still so much more to improve on. FlyQuest, they were not beaten by GenG because GenG was just like better. That is a true statement, but what actually happened is FlyQuest lost to GenG because FlyQuest, like, they didn't have enough in the tank, right? They didn't have enough of they were their own worst enemy, actually. Like, literally, it's so identifiable to say that if FlyQuest was a little bit better themselves, they actually beat GenG because what GenG had was understandable. It was quantifiable. we knew exactly what GenG could give in this series, and FlyQuest, all they had to do was give more. It wasn't something like, oh, it's just overwhelming. The hands gap is too much. Like
Yep.
there's been so many series where it's like it doesn't matter how good the strategy is or how much we think about it. There's just too much of a hands gap. That's not the issue here. The hands gap was not a thing at all this series. There was no hands gap
Negligible.
present. It was negligible. The real gap was just FlyQuest just really didn't have enough. Like if we literally had one extra cooking comp, one extra like, that was a nice comp that we just cooked up. We had two great ones. We just needed one more. We just win. We just win, which is so awesome to think about.
Yeah, and I think it gives a lot of hope. Like this is the kind of series. So someone mentioned on Reddit that last time we played like this, which was the last time we came out of a drought of bad Western to Eastern performance was 2017, and Misfit came out, did this, and then the year after, G2's hero run happened.
G2 beat RNG, right? And then
Yeah,
2019,
2018.
yeah,
right?
G2 beat RNG in 2018. C9 beat Afrika in 2018, and then we go to 2019. TL beats IG. G2 beats SKT and wins MSI. G2 makes it to Fnatic in 2018 makes it to finals. Like Fnatic beats EDG. Like 2017 Misfits led to every single Western victory after that, right? So we could be on that train. Yeah, we could definitely be on that train.
Yeah,
And
I'm definitely not being unrealistic here. I actually think there is a world. Like we are being a little bit dramatic, but I also think it's like definitely possible, right? Because a lot of people play pro and they get inspired. They see it and they're like, I can compete internationally. Like there's a point to this, right?
yeah,
It also is like a chain effect because people will go to the region as well and be like, hey, NA isn't a joke. Hey, actually, EU for a while, although we are losing JoJo, but which is kind of hilarious. But maybe it's because we're good enough that, we have players to export, which is like a word that we never use with NA.
we, on average, have been better than EU for a good chunk for Worlds performances for at least 2 years now, and I think we deserve it. We deserve to export for the first time ever. But yeah, I mean, I want to think about that snowball effect, right? Just think about Team Liquid, okay? Let's just think about Team Liquid for a little bit. And the fact that they were better than FlyQuest up until they weren't at the very end. Like, FlyQuest was almost the same story as FlyQuest. TL was almost the same story as FlyQuest. Yep. At MSI and EWC, getting really close games against SKT. Like, we are on that precipice. We are on the cusp of just getting over the hunch and just finally taking the series, right?
And we've always said it's partially a mental hump as well. And like
it is. It's 100% a mental hunch. Dude, TL, like there is a world where if TL had no nerves and had a slightly better meta, they're doing the same thing that FlyQuest does, but they choked.
I mean, no, here's the thing. It's not that they choked. It's because the rest of the teams got lucky that TL had to play another NA team.
Yeah, that's true. Imagine, right? Imagine we had TL and Fly at a quarters. We'd be singing a different song, Yeah.
I love Worlds.
Yeah, I love Worlds too.
My favorite time of the year.
It's when the copium goes to the extreme. But there was no copium today. No copium today. Okay, we've talked enough. This is the LCS podcast. We gave FlyQuest their props, but let's talk about the other series, okay?
Other series?
Yeah, they were. There were. Let's just start from the top now. Let's go to Weibo Gaming versus LNG. I think I was one of the very few people to predict this correctly. Just saying. I called it. Weibo Gaming beat LNG. I just don't get bait. We have to not get baited, okay? LNG looked better than Weibo last time we saw them before the series, but the 2-week gap is a mega nerf. It's a huge nerf, especially. Okay, and also we can give GenG a bit of that copium. I do think the 2 weeks nerf hurt Gen.
Yes, it affects them just as much. No,
it does affect them just as much. GenG was lucky that FlyQuest wasn't on top, slightly more on top of their game because we would have upset them, right? But it's a real thing. LNG looked straight up rusty against Weibo Gaming. Like, I think it was still a fun series to watch, but like. LNG's draft priority on the Jin game 1 shows that they were behind the meta. And I also think that just the straight up, like, I don't know, just like the aggressiveness, like the the proactivity, the testosterone. I don't know. I know that's a weird thing to say about League because we're gamers, but like Weibo, like LNG didn't like have the sauce, you know? Like I feel like they were just missing that firepower, and Weibo Gaming, they were not that clean, honestly, but they had the sauce at least, right? They were like playing together and playing very proactively. And I think Weibo Gaming has lots of flaws, and they showed it against LNG, but it didn't really matter because LNG, I don't know, they just really weren't playing the game as well as they should have been, right?
It felt very uninspired from LNG, honestly.
Yeah.
I think Weibo played really solid, but it didn't feel like I'm like, oh wow, look at that gap. Like these guys are just like giga smurfing. No, it felt like they played really decently, right? I was like impressed. I think Xiaohu had some really good games.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
For one thing, despite all the narratives, right? This is two worlds now, and I don't know. I felt just like the whole time that it could have been. So two things stuck out to me. I think Hung is not that good still. Like he was always kind of a low light for this team.
Yeah.
But when it mattered the most, he really didn't show up. And then I also think Weiwei, I don't know, man. He just did not look like he could jungle. I don't know how else to big start. Like Scout was still fine. Gala was still. I feel like Gala is just put on bad teams. I think this guy is still a really, really incredible. Internationally, he is maybe one of the most consistent non-Korean AD carries ever.
Okay, yeah, I can believe that. Yeah, I think he's on teams. I wouldn't say they're bad. I would just say they're like not clutch. Like this LNG team, they have all the pieces to be good, but they don't have the players to be like really clutch. Like Scout is a really good consistent player, but I wouldn't say he's mega clutch, right? If I think back when EDG won with Scout, the actual clutch players on that roster, it was Viper, Mako, and it was JJ. I think Scout was very consistent and a very strong part of that team. He's an excellent mid laner, but like the clutchness always felt like it was like JJ, right? JJ
actually hard carried that series.
Yeah, and he was very, very clutch, and he actually outshined Canyon in the finals, right? Where this roster
people don't talk about because he didn't look good afterward, but he was.
It's true. He was a 1 year wonder, yeah, one hit wonder. But Weiwei, he's not clutch. Like Weiwei reminds me of reminds me of like Peanut, where it's like he does everything right for his team. He's like, playing the supportive champions or playing whatever they need in draft. Like sometimes there's a Nocturne. And I think Gala falls into this too, where it's like they're not putting themselves in the position to be clutch. Like this is why I didn't like Inspired on the Sejuani either, where it's like you can get the early game ganks off, but like afterwards it's very hard to be clutch because you don't have damage on your side. I do think that's something that's like a big deal about being a clutch player, is that like, yeah, you make the big engages, and that's great for, I think, support champions and support players. Like, I think Buzio had a lot of clutch engages and stuff like that. I think Lahens had a lot of clutch Maokai ultis and stuff. But something like, if you want to like take over the games, you need to give yourself something that can like make big splashy out plays. Like generally just like 1v9 one single fight. Which is why I wanted Kaisa for Masu, right? Because Masu and Kaisa, you can't do stuff on Kalista that you can on Kaisa, right? Kaisa can actually 1v9 an entire team fight if she gets enough items. But I don't know. LNG, they just didn't have that sauce, right? They didn't have that sauce where it's like, okay, they're down, they're behind, or they're kind of losing. Can they do something like really explosive and unexpected to just win them the game? And they didn't have the champions for it. The only champions that really fall into that category is like Yone, right? Like I think, Scout had the opportunity. He was playing well on the Yone when he got it. But I also do think Aurora is more broken than Yone, which is kind of insane to think about. But then Gala, like I think this is something that's gonna like plague players that other players don't have the problem with, is that Gala can be insanely consistent, really, really good, high mechanics, but where is his voice, right? Where is his own personal influence on the game? Okay, I know we just flamed Doublelift, but I'm gonna bring Doublelift into this conversation, okay? Doublelift does something that is special about him, and is that he will tell you, no, shut the fuck up, I'm not picking this champion again, I'm picking blah blah blah, right? And I think Gala should have been like, he didn't have the voice or the influence on his own team to say, no, I'm not picking Jin again. This champion is useless. Pick me Kaisa and let me carry and play protect the Kaisa comp, right? Doublelift had the gall to piss off people, his coach and teammates, to say, no, you're playing a protect the Doublelift comp.
Mm-hmm.
I'm picking a carry and you're all playing around me.
Mm.
And I think that's what Gala doesn't have, right? There's no way Gala has that sort of like energy, and he picks Jin, right? Because the Jin was so useless. The Jin's been
So
so useless
useless.
all tournament long.
I
Like,
don't know why, but when it all comes down to it, I feel like a lot of Asian AD carries decide it's time to pick Jin. And I'm like, of all the things you're hedging on as a star AD carry, is
yeah,
that really the hyper carry we're looking for?
nope, nope. Because
I think Jackie Love single handedly convinced everyone from that first game. He's like, dude, Jin though.
yeah, that is literally everybody's been riding that high. They want that.
I actually think so because it wasn't
Yeah.
that popular before, relatively speaking. And then
Yeah.
Jackie Love has one incredible game on it, and then here we are. It's the
Yep.
Jin meta.
Cause everybody wants that static shiv, like just chain kill, right? Everybody sees all those clips on ARAM, they want them for themselves. It's just so overrated. It's just not that good. I mean, I feel the same about Misfortune, right? These like high utility, like low carry type of champ. I kind of feel the same about Ezreal too, where it's like these champions are like they have high utility, they have good early lane phase. Ezreal is like good poke and stuff, but like I really feel like you need that extra like oomph 80 carry if you really want to
I think
1v9 for your
Ashe is
team.
the bar. If it's worse than Ashe output wise and utility mix, it's not worth it right now.
Yeah, and then Ashe also has that the incomparable utility with Hawkshot, right? Like you can't beat Hawkshot. That's like nothing beats Hawkshot for a jungler. So yeah, I do think LNG they were just missing that sauce at this tournament. I do think that if they went out of Swiss stage at like 2-2 and they went 3-2 and they just had to play the entire bracket, we would say the exact same thing, right? I think if we just switch LNG and Weibo, LNG had to go through the fucking gauntlet and play a bunch of teams over and over again, they would have been way better. They would have had a better understanding of the meta, and they would have been fresh. But Weibo Gaming had a better understanding of the meta, and they were just playing with that sauce. All right, let's move on. Let's go to BLG versus Hanwha Life Gaming. This was a really sick series, really fun. Even though we saw some fraudulent behavior, didn't really matter because it was still an insanely fun series. The fights were absolutely crazy. Like Viper and Elk, these guys are not fraudulent. There is no world where you can say Viper or Elk are fraudulent because they were freaking pumping. And I think that this is one of Viper's flaws as well. Is it goes right back to him. Game 4, your elimination match, your best player is put on Misfortune. Yeah, no, give me a break, buddy. Give me a break. Viper, if you want to be the best, you have everything except you're not playing the right champion. That's it. That's all it was. I do think Viper, if they just played Protect the Viper comp, like, dude, this guy can carry you to a world championship. Like, this guy's the best. This guy's absolutely insane. So, but let's talk about this series, BLG versus Hanwha Life. They win game 1, Hanwha Life, but then BLG wins the rest of the series. So, what's up?
I would say until today's games. Okay, so even with today's games in mind, I think this was the most impressive best of 5 so far, and one of the most impressive singular games as a series. I totally agree with when the lights are on and the tension is high. I have no idea. Like, I truly do not know what possessed Hanwha Life to be so anti-clutch as to draft the way they did, having seen how effective BLG was at just finding their ends, finding their angles. Like, I honestly, I watched game 1 of the series. Let's start from there, I guess, top to bottom. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay. So we went our Knights Ari, which he's world famous for, high win rate, very strong at it. And they couldn't make it work. The MF didn't work. They kind of got, I think they just didn't, they continued to look shaky like they did through most of the play-ins, right? Mm. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, so this is going to happen. Hanwha's the better team right now. Cool. And the rest of the series happened. And I was like, wait, Knight actually smurfed in some of those games. His size was really good. Obviously, we always, okay, we can talk about the games one by one, but like the bin gap and Doran gap is generational. Like I actually think that most of LPL's big wins have been this matchup.
Yeah.
Like I'm sorry. Like I was watching. I was like, I feel bad for him. Like he's actually just getting dicked on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's not like
Bin
I
is
wish
too
I was
good.
exaggerating it to an extent because it's so obviously like he is outclassed. I'm sorry. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if this guy will ever get over his mental fear of Chinese people, but like
Okay.
I
Yeah.
was like I don't know how else to describe it because he just
Okay.
keeps losing
Maybe
internationally
yeah.
to Asian like the LPL every time.
I think it's just Bin, right?
And now I'll be more specific. Like I say all that because I want to be, you know, it's a good headline. It's controversial, right? So it's like
Clickbait.
exciting.
Yes. Yep.
But really though, what is this guy doing? How can he continue to be this bad? Like he loses one side of the matchup, spawns up, picks the other side. He's like, oh yeah, I guess Nard Jax is the matchup. This is the next one. He even got 2 kills fed to him early. I'm like really not sure how he keeps doing it. Like, okay, here's a conversation topic that I saw on Reddit, which is a little overreaction, but maybe has some amount of truth to it. Do you think the level of top laners is just not that high in top level LCK? Because Keen is good,
Deus is good.
Zeus is good, very good. Then what happens after that?
No,
Doran?
I don't think. Okay, well, you can do the same argument for LPL. Where do you go after Bin?
Let's see. So we have Ben. We still have 369. You could say they're at bad seasons, right? But he's literally internationally been at an extremely high level.
But 369 gets dicked on by Zeus every time. It looks the same as Doran versus Bin. I'm just saying.
369 or not 369. Zeus. Yeah, Zeus loses to Doran every time.
So there's no consistency in the argument you're kind of saying. It's just people have matchup differences, right? Doran beats Zeus beats 369, Bin beats Doran, Zeus and Bin, I don't know. You know, I think Zeus and Bin are the 2 best top laners, right? I do think it's a matchup thing. I don't think Doran has a problem as in like I don't think Doran is bad. I think Doran is a choker. I think there's a big difference there. Okay? Chovy is not bad. Chovy is the best player in the world. He is a choker. And I do think that's the same thing about Doran in that he makes uncharacteristic mistakes, okay? If we saw Doran making these uncharacteristic mistakes domestically, then it's not uncharacteristic, it's his character. He's just bad. But Doran is just being stupid. He's just not like he's on Meganar and he's not just like flashing and killing Elk, who's a free kill. That's not being bad, that's choking. Because a gold player can flash ulti a flashless, cleanseless AD carry on Gnar, right? Anybody can do that.
That's true.
Doran isn't doing it not because he's a bad player and he hasn't done it 10 million times. It's because he's on the international world stage in front of thousands of viewers and he's choking his brains out. He's literally pooping his pants. So that's my opinion on Doran. And I don't think it's like anything about skill level. Like I'm gonna say the same about TL too, right? We're gonna give them the same copium and the same insult. Where you put TL, you tell them that they're playing another scrim, and you give them maximum headphones, and you put them in a dark room, and then at the end you just reveal that it was actually on a big stage. TL could be like one of the best teams. They're scrim gods. Like that's how G2 probably works too, right? I think that's how Doran works, where, hey, you tell him it's an LCK final, he will be the best top laner in the world, he will smurf on Zeus all day long, right? You literally just relabel this series LCK finals, Doran performs better. So that's my take. I don't really think there's a weakness in top laners in LCK, because I don't think there's that many extra good top laners, right? I think top laner in general has just been a hard role to be insane at, because so many top laners that win worlds haven't been that good, right? You talk about like, let's go to some top laners that won worlds, okay? Kingen, he won worlds. Let's be honest, he kind of just had one wonder year, right? Ever since then, he's been pretty bad. I think you go before that, it was Flandre. Flandre was a pretty decent top laner, but like he also kind of just had a wonder year, right? That 1 year, Graves meta was insane. He just played Graves top every game.
Gimgoon as well.
Gimgoon.
Next year.
honestly,
Not that good.
I think a lot of people give credit to Nuggery, but if you remember when Nuggery won on Danwon Gaming, he was actually just a tank one trick. He played Sejuani and Orin every game, and then it was just Canyon and Showmaker running around smurfing on people.
Yep.
So
The Shy obviously is good.
the Shy is an exception. Zeus is an
Yep.
exception. These
Yep.
guys actually play carry top laners and tank top laners, and they dominate you. Most top laners that win worlds are like 1 year wonders or big facilitators. So I honestly think top laners just are an insanely hard role to stand out on, and Bin is just that good. I think Bin is like the one true exception. He is the only Chinese top laner.
Ultimate exception.
Dude, he's like one of the few Chinese players, like bar Uzi, that you can be like, oh, okay, this guy is actually like the best out of not just Chinese player, but like all the players, right?
He just constantly show like 369 has eras, right? Where I think 369 on tanks, for example, is very good.
Yes.
And I think in certain metas, like this guy is like he is definitely world class. But he's not like the Uzi style, where it's like, oh, we're just going to do unspeakable, like unthinkable things.
Yeah.
And no matter what level you're, and if there's a gap, it will be so obvious, right? Like
Yeah.
the kind of carry that we just very rarely see in modern league because everyone's leveled up a lot. Like Qua can lane against Chovy. Chovy's still better.
Yeah.
But Qua can lane against Chovy, right?
Yeah.
That was not the case back in the day. So
No.
he is the exception. I agree. I
Yeah.
do think there are players like Breathe and stuff who have looked really good this tournament.
Yeah.
But yes, I would say at that level, you're right. It's actually, I was like thinking like Looper won a year.
That guy was not that good.
No, he really was not.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Interesting.
And you can even think about like Marn, right? Marn was considered insanely good, but then he went on to do nothing. Marn was actually had the potential to just stay on SKT and be the best, but he chose to leave for the money, and he went into irrelevance. He became completely irrelevant. So like, there's lots of top laners that I think it's
coached for Team Liquid. Excuse me.
Oh, he did. Yeah.
I'd like to forget, but I can't.
Oh, I forgot about that. He was so. I think it was so terrible that he definitely made it worse for TL.
I would have rather he fall into irrelevance. Actually,
Yeah, he kind of screwed over Harry's career, didn't he? Huh? I feel like they went in tandem.
That was the era.
Yeah, that was Harry.
Aw.
Yeah. That was like the 9th place TL. Yeah, that was not good.
Those were the days.
Those were good. That was not even that long ago, right? That was literally just.
Yeah, because it
was
was
that just last year?
It was Harry and Tion.
That was just last year. That was 2023. Wait, time is weird.
Wait,
That was just last.
Marin the
That was last year.
TL?
No. That was Bjergsen TL was freaking the old Immortals coach, I think. That was bad as well.
Ilioto.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, but yeah, speaking about top laners, see, this is I want to defend Doran while also making fun of him, because everybody's making fun of Doran, and there's not much more you can say besides he's a choker. But I do want to give respect to Doran in that, hey, at least you're choking against Bin, right? You're not choking against a bad top laner, you know? So what can I really complain about? So it's understandable, at least, right? So yeah,
True.
that's all I'm gonna say.
Choking against Bin is really respectable. It's fine.
Hey!
It's not really choking.
It's just Bin.
It's just
Yeah.
Bin, dude. Bin.
It's
Like
just
when we watched really good 80 carries lose to Uzi, we didn't say you choked per se. It's just like, okay, man. Like maybe you choked, but like also, yeah. I mean, it's just Uzi. What do you want?
Hey, at least it's against a good player, right? I mean,
if you lose to Doran every time at the bright lights,
yeah. I mean,
Zeus, that's just really disappointing because of your level, not because Doran's bad, but because you're good.
Yeah, and I think Zeus, I definitely think T1 and Zeus has some sort of weird choking thing against GenG and Doran Peanut stuff. Like they made 2 GenGs and both of them were able to beat T1 this year, right?
Like it's really like a cursed science experiment. Like that doesn't make. You've done the test that doesn't seem like it's possible. You cloned a team to see is it the team? Is it?
They sacrificed their ability to win worlds to beat T1. Which is respectable, honestly. They monkey paws themselves, right? Respect, you could beat T1, but you can't win worlds, and T1 will just, play against the LPL.
We're in a world where our finals can be the same as last year, and the path is almost the same.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think that's wild.
one key difference that we're going to talk about later. But let's finish up the Hanwha Life Bros BLG series. I do think that I also think Peanut, honestly, this was his last year playing competitively, he said. I think he's going into military next year. Very sad. He is a great player, an absolutely legacy legendary player, one of the best players to never win Worlds. But like, there's no real sugarcoating it. He doesn't deserve it, right? He does not deserve to win Worlds, not with this level of performance. You can't go into a series in the quarterfinals against BLG and kind of like not do much. He didn't really make himself known, right, in this series. He wasn't an outstanding player.
He didn't make us believe.
He didn't make us believe, that's for sure. Hey, Jun, with all of his ups and downs he's had this year and on this roster, getting subbed in and subbed out, at least he made himself very known. He was a big influence on the Kindred and on the Wukong.
Dude,
like
the
he
Kindred
was
game was incredible. He was so boned in terms of like the position of the game. He had like one stack at 16 minutes. Like, like this, I was like, oh man, we might lose this. And he managed to not tilt, be more influential, and he had a signature pick that no one in the world, most people in the world cannot play at that level, right?
Yeah.
It was memorable. He was impactful, and I think in jungle is like almost the opposite of top in the sense that like to be a world champion jungler does not mean that you are always the most Mr. Consistent, Mr. Reliable. It actually means that you pop off so hard when it's needed. Like Owner's Whirlwind, incredible.
Yeah.
Canyon's Whirlwind, also incredible. Like he's still really good after, right? But he's not like Mr. Reliable. Peanut is more reliable than Canyon. Yeah. Just through his whole history of his career. And yet, when it matters the most, it's always about like the meme is the Chinese jungler just comes out of nowhere and just wins. Yeah, and he never looks that good again. And it's like, what did he?
It's true. JJ is the same, right? Ning
the same.
on IG was the same, right? Tien is the same. Oh my god, we're gonna talk about Tien.
Tien at least has like a storied career in terms of like, looks the same. Well,
domestically, okay. Tien is always Tien when he won and Tien domestically is one of the best junglers ever. Tien at Worlds after he won has just been bad. Let's just be honest. It's just been not great. Okay, so let's finish on Hanwha Life BLG. I do think Jun, he placed this smart. He showed why he is on the main roster. He showed why he's here over Wei. Respect to Jun, because man, I cannot imagine performing like that and getting unlucky with the marks and being subbed out all year and still taking it to Peanut. So good job. He was literally just so aggressive on the Kindred, just perma fighting. We already complimented Bin. Let's compliment Knight a little bit too. I think that he showed something that other mid laners have not been willing to show yet at this tournament, and that is taking an L for yourself to help the team. He picked Galio and relied on his jungler. This is something that hasn't really been a trend for mid laners. Most mid laners, they have to bring out the damage. They have to bring out the high farm, the high CS, right? But Knight said, hey, my jungler's popping off. I can just play Galio and I'll just roam for him and I'll be a tank. So great for that. I think, we might see Faker do this stuff too, where Galio looking a little juicy, looking like a very strong champion against magic damage champions this patch.
Yeah. And he played it very reliably. Like maybe one misplay that I can think of, but he was good on it, right? He showed okay, honestly, his Yone maybe is only slightly better than Showmakers, but he did have a good early game on it. He just got way too in his own head, I think, about having to make plays later on. He was just going, I'm like, no, man, that's not it. So I think he showed a lot of variety of play, and like, we do lament his champion pool, but I think for the most part, it wasn't. I think it is impressive enough that he's willing to go past ego, play for his team, and like, I mean, you have a team that has the firepower too. So
let's talk about that firepower.
Let's talk about the firepower.
Elk is him. Oh my god, Elk is so good.
Oh my god, Elk is so good. Like we already talked about him in group stage, and I was like, okay, yeah. I mean, Elk is good, but like, he's going to be having to play against Viper, right? Viper Delight, not just Viper, okay? Because Elk, I think, is in the same conversation as Viper, depending on the meta, depending on their form. They're within, 5% of each other, depending on the day.
Sure.
maybe 10%. But
Numbers.
on is much worse than delayed,
Yeah.
in my mind, except on like Rakan and certain champions. I think delayed is probably his average as a support in terms of playmaking, in terms of mechanics, is really high up there, along with like the carriers of the world.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
it's really hard to like compare bot lanes when you just like have a worse duo in terms of like laning, in terms of champ pool variety and consistency.
Yep. But we can compliment Elk all we want, but I do think On, who has been the weak spot of BLG and who has faced a lot of criticism, he got his one trick. He got Rakan all those games, and guess what? We can complain about On. He had a pretty bad Swiss stage. But he did not have a bad series, and I honestly do think
No.
it's because of the Rakan. His Rakan is insane. Okay, there's a reason BLG is the number one LPL seed, and it is because On is good enough. Like we say he's the weak link, but we compare him to the field, he's still a very very good support, right? So let's not trash his name too much, but we
Of
can
course.
still pinpoint. Hey, Helm of Life, you should have banned Rakan, okay? Because I think Rakan is going up heavily in prio. I think it's why FlyQuest started to favor Rakan as well. I just think it's a
Yeah.
really strong champion right now. And I think that's why we're seeing the occasional Zyra Rakan as well. But yeah, Rakan for On was insane. Rakan, yeah, he was. I mean, he was just on. Like
He was
just
insane.
he was really insane.
incredible.
Yeah, he was
I
incredible.
think one thing that's like not necessarily underrated, but not everyone will notice with his Rakan specifically is same thing he did last year when they popped off and DLG came onto the scene. No one knew internationally how good they were. On is so ready to bluff and ready to just get space. Like he was like this last year too. He's a psychopath. He just walks into your jungle. He's like Rakan by himself. He's just throwing words, clearing stuff, and everyone's watching him like, oh shit, like who's behind him? And like sometimes there is someone behind him. Sometimes he's just doing it because he's confident.
Yeah.
He really embodies like the European super support player playing like he was saying Mickey, where like they're not that consistent, but no, they are willing to bluff. They are willing to like be risk takers on their team and just create space, right?
And have crazy fast snap engages, just like
so fast
out of nowhere.
I
boom.
don't think he says anything. I'm pretty sure he just does it.
Yeah.
And then his teammates are like just so good that they follow up.
Yeah. So props to On. I don't think he should get Rakan anymore.
Again, he's like Bao Lan was also not that good of a support, but his Rakan,
yep, he's got a skin.
For a reason. He was really good. Like he was smurfing on it. It's not just like he was really good for what he was genuinely like. We will lose. It's like you play against a one trick basically. And you're like, yeah, this guy's like fine. Then you see him on his one trick, you're like, oh, I ain't fucking with that.
Whoopsies. Yep. Yeah, and I think sometimes we wonder why one trick type of players don't just play the champions they're really good at, right? I'm gonna keep complaining about this. I'm not gonna say Masu is a one trick. He's not a one trick, but there is a big difference between like Masu and other champions and Masu and Kai'Sa. God damn, man, his Kai'Sa is actually world class. So insane. I wish we'd played it. But then this is what we have to say about the difference between Viper and Elk, right? Viper had to play in his last two games just not very good ADCs. Okay, he had to play against just normal Zeri, not Graf Zeri that gets to like farm grass box. Just normal Zeri looks like completely worthless, right? Like, why isn't Hanwha Life picking the stuff for their best players? This is also what I had the problem with TL, right? In their elimination match, they decided to put all the eggs on the APA basket when he has not been performing very well. When you have a bot lane that's giga smurfing on everybody, put all the eggs into the Yeon Core DJ basket and let them carry you to the finish line, right? Yeah. Knight played Galio because Elk is on Kai'Sa. Knight played Galio because his jungler is on Kindred, right? It makes so much sense. And yet Hanwha Life, they have, kind of like players who just really aren't performing that well, like Doran, like Peanut, and they're not really facilitating the player that is playing very well, which is Viper. But Hanwha Life versus BLG, like that game 4, some of those skirmishes and team fights were completely mind-blowing. Like there were so many mechanics, so much dodge skill shots. What was it? I think it was like around Baron, like Viper and Elk and Zeka and just everybody was just running around with 1 HP, zone using, flashing out, barely dodging skill shots, Guardian Angel, like sniping each other, just like, oh my god, everybody was just sitting there at 1 HP outplaying each other, and then it ends with like Silas and the Kaisa killing each other at the same time.
Oh my god, that game! The way the comments mentioned it basically describe it as they're like it's like those Chinese TikTok videos where they like choreograph a fight, but
Yeah.
you just saw it happen in a real game,
In real time,
The
yeah.
double Galio ult where they're in the same frame, they both pop
yeah.
down,
Oh,
just
yeah.
go to. Oh my god, that was honestly one of the most like if FlyQuest and if FlyQuest GenG didn't go the way that I think we would have been spending not as much time, but we would have spent a lot of time just gushing over that game
Yeah.
and just like the series in general, because I think it was basically a game of like really well matched, back and forth, lots of fighting, and then Doran.
Yep, just a couple underperformance moments from Doran. I think
yeah,
I think
3.7k gold gap from top
Yeah.
lane alone. Doran.
Yeah. I also
But-
think just the team fight, right? Like, man, this is something I had a problem with Impact as well. Is just like the difference between Bin Jax and like every other Jax is that he can team fight well. Is he's making so much space and an actual threat in the team fights, where like it feels like Doran on Jax, he would just turn on his helicopter and then he would stun nobody because everybody just like spaced him, right? Or Doran on Gnar, he hits 1 or 2 people with his ulti. He misses his W because he gets space. It's like you can't be doing this. You have to land everything well at the right time, and that's what Bin does. So yeah, Doran. It's okay.
But again, they don't get this far without Doran. Doran played quite well domestically.
I mean, it's true. It's just like catch 22. What are you gonna do about it, right? Like you can't. If you get rid of Doran.
Keijo stream earlier in the season where he's like, yeah, someone put a clip as well, but Keijo was like, praising Doran through playoffs because he was really good.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the clip of him say, "I'll never trust Doran again."
Yep.
He's such a whatever. Like he said all this, right? But then the timestamp is 2023 Worlds.
Yeah. No, it was I will never, ever trust Doran again. And it's after it was after the series where he just flashed over a wall on Aatrox and nobody was there. Flash ulti. What? Anybody home?
The legendary
All right,
generational choking.
let's talk about the League Dad's favorite series. It was actually kind of an underwhelming. It was fun in that it was explosive when things were happening, but it was kind of a underwhelming series. T1 versus Top Esports. I also predicted this correctly. Just saying, Kevin, maybe you should,
you know what?
get on the trend.
I shouldn't gamble. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't really a gamble. Like everything this year points to Top Esports should be better than Team One. The problem is it's T1, right? T1 is the only team that does this. T1 is the only team that is the most dominant org that wins all this time, and they still look like the underdogs, and then they come out and win anyways, right? Like they
only team that can look
manufacture
like the underdogs while being the reigning world champions. Yeah.
Exactly. Like T1 manufactures underdog energy. They get flamed and they get complained. People underrate them in analysis. Like people underrated them last year and in 2022, and they made finals both years, right? Because they kept losing to GenG, because they kept having close series, because they subbed in Poby, because Faker has wrist issues, because they got DDoSed all year long. And yet, here they are, doing it again. It doesn't fucking matter. T1 is just T1. I mean, there's not really much to say about this series. I do think Top Esports didn't really show up, but T1 just came in and played the best of 3 or best of 5 they have played literally all year long. Like maybe spring finals when they went to 5 games against GenG was comparable, but T1 was just exceptionally clean, disgustingly clean this series. That game 1 where nothing's happening, nothing's going on, and then you just see the first 5v5 around Baron, and then Keria just lands a Bard stun into Faker, steals Silas, or steals Rumble ulti, and paints the carpet, and then boom, they're all flashing in. Owner flashes in, Zaze flashes in, and then Gumayushi flashes in. I'm like, this is just clutchness after clutchness. It's like such the opposite of GenG being that perfectly oiled machine to T1 just being like, I'm gonna flash in your face over and over again and just blow you up in Zonias and dash away and dodge everything. Like, man, Keria was on another level in this series. So, anything to comment about the series?
Yeah, the T1 signature there is basically what you're describing. Like, T1
Yeah.
is the only team in the world that has that consistently over so long. That instinct of like, you lose one fight, the game ends. Like, it almost became a meme when they were at their peak.
Yeah.
But like, they just continued to do it, right? No matter how down and out they have a killer instinct and they know how to close out a game or a fight that wins the game, right? Like, one thing that we've always been bad at as a region for the West is like, when we beat Asian teams, most of our teams have to fight like 6 good fights in a row.
Yeah.
And that just like becomes really exhausting. Like, probability wise, how are we doing that, right? Even when we're getting all these picks, we don't get like backbreaking advantages unless your name is like one era of TL was like that maybe recently, and then peak G2. That's all I can think of really. Where I'm like, wow, that advantage. How are they going to come back from that? For FlyQuest, the whole series they played incredible, but the whole time I was like, oh boy, we have to win again
we're on
and
a clock.
again, and like I don't feel it's guaranteed until we got Mountain Soul. I was like, nothing's guaranteed.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, T1 has that vibe of you give them an inch, they'll just take the whole Nexus, right?
That is true.
And
if FlyQuest won here, I would have been like, the Worlds is scripted.
Yeah,
like T1 is going to win Worlds again.
Yeah, they are. Actually, that would have been. I mean, no. Okay, I was just gonna say if FlyQuest can beat GenG, I would have just been like, fuck it, FlyQuest win the Worlds. I don't care. I don't care.
I mean, I would claim it for sure, but would I really believe in my heart of hearts that we could beat Worlds T1 with how hot they looked? I don't know.
God.
I would love to see the matchup.
It would have been so insane. Yeah.
It would have been so insane.
It would have been so insane.
Masu flying over the top, killing Faker, and it's like, oh my god.
Oh my god.
Bald
Dude.
Eagles crying out.
Yeah. Okay. Like, something I want to say also is that Western's teams winning internationally is like such a big deal. It's a big deal, obviously. We're all talking about it. It's interesting. But it's actually an insane deal, okay? FlyQuest versus GenG almost had as much viewership as a T1 best of 5. Okay? That is insane. We were at 3.5 million, okay? That is money into LCS's pocket. If we think about all those years that not TL, sorry, okay, TL is a part of it, but all those years that NA and EU didn't make it out of groups or didn't make it to quarterfinals or barely did anything, right? That is literally millions of dollars that LCS lost out on, the LEC lost out on. It is why we're doing a merger right now, right? Like, there was a time when LCS viewership was popping off, right? In like the 2015 to like 2017 era, right? It was because people actually thought that we could win internationally. It was because we were actually making international strides, and the paychecks were insane, right? Like, TL1 beat IG at MSI, and the paychecks were absolutely through the roof. We were paying $10 million for perks 2 years later because we thought that we could recreate that international success. 3.5 million views for FlyQuest vs GenG. Insane. That's not counting China at all.
Giant fan base orgs.
No, FlyQuest is not. This is their first time at Worlds, or second time at Worlds ever. First time at a quarterfinals, right? First time. This is the first time we've taken a game off of an Eastern team in quarterfinals in 4 years.
So funny. I was like, really?
4 years, man. It was G2 in 2020 when we beat GenG in quarterfinals, and we lost to Danwon in semis.
The Africa Freaks series that an NA team took a game off of a Korean team.
True. It's true, right? We've made it to quarterfinals a couple times. C9 in 2021, Energy in 2023. But like we need to do this on a consistent level if we want to save LCS and save LEC and save Western viewership. Is like making it to international success is a huge deal for our regions. I don't think people understand how big of a deal it is and how much money comes in when we do this. The money is going to, like, from what FlyQuest did this year, the money is going to last this org in LCS, and the viewership numbers are going to be pumped for a while. Like we're gonna be eating good for at least the next year or two because of this train we're riding. Energy into FlyQuest, into the TL and MSI stuff like that. So it is a big deal. And T1 is one of the biggest proofs, right? You keep winning worlds, people are going to tune into you. People are going to keep watching you. You're going to be one of the most successful orgs in esports history. So, winning does wonders. Let's talk a little bit about top esports because we can compliment T1 all we want. We're going to have to talk about them more anyways. Top esports didn't show up, right? They got booty clapped, and I'm going to say this. 369 and Impact are two peas in a pod, very similar players. I think 369 wanted to rewrite his identity, and he picked the wrong time to do it. Okay, what was I saying about Impact? Pick Cassante. Pick a tank. You're insanely good at it. You're world class on that. What is the same thing about 369? Did he pick a single tank this series? No, sir. No, sir, he did not. Okay, he picked Galio, but that's not his usual tank, right? Like, 369 is the Cassante merchant, just like Keen is the Cassante merchant. Oh, and the series looks so different if 369 just plays Cassante. I promise you, if he doesn't play Blade of the Rune King Kennen in their elimination match.
I can't believe he went on hit Kennen in the match where he needs to make the difference.
It's the Shy. It's the freaking Shy. Do you remember the Shy? He plays on hit Kennen who was like 0-11 or something.
Yeah, and Kale. Oh, I remember.
Yeah.
The good old days.
The good old days, man. Like, what is 369 doing? What is top esports doing? If I'm Jackie, okay, Jackie Love played pretty badly this series as well. Jackie Love was not Jackie Loving, but like I don't know. If I'm anybody on top esports, right? I'm Jackie Love, I'm TN, I'm Mako. They've all won worlds.
Yeah.
I would just look at 369 and be like, dude, just play Cassante. Like, you're good at it. You played tanks for Ruler for an entire year, and you won't play a tank for me, right? Like, that would piss me off if I was Jackie Love, right? Remember in JDG, he's just playing tanks every single game, and they're just fucking unbeatable godlike? Like, it's the same thing, man. Just play a tank. Oh my god, it's so easy. You're playing against Zeus. I get it. But don't think you can play carries into Zeus and win. And that's exactly what he did.
This is also one of those matches we mentioned before. Zeus just beats 369 internationally.
Sure.
Even if it like peak 369 looks super good, one MSI, all that can be checked in a box.
Yep.
But at Worlds, Zeus has his number in every meta so far.
Yep. And I do think it's a bit of like, this is what I was complaining about Viper and stuff, is you just got to play what you're good at, right? Just play what defines you. And that if Viper was just playing Kaisa every game against BLG, I guarantee you it looks different because he can actually take the game into his own hands. Dude, 369 cannot take the game into his own hands. You can 1v9 as Cassante, right? It's not necessarily through damage, but through playmaking. And he just never
space making.
Yep. Never put himself in that situation. And then Faker, he does what he needs to do, right? He plays Galio game 30. He says, hey, I know what I'm good at, and I know what my team's good at. I got one of the best top laners in the world. I got one of the best playmaking supports. Just play Galio, right? Galio mid lane game 3. I think Keria popped off. I think Gumayushi is an absolute rock. I mean, this series was a Keria diff, right? Mako wasn't really playing the game on the same level. Keria's Pyke and Rakan were just barred. There's no complaints. Just godlike. Just absolutely godlike.
They literally could be like, as long as they're allowed to go to Worlds, they could be like a 10th place team in LCK.
Yep.
And apparently this is just going to always happen. Death taxes in
T1
at Worlds.
Yep. T1 at Worlds performing like absolute beasts because, I mean, like, every player on T1 gets a chance to shine. This was Keria's series to shine. He gapped everybody. He was just unbelievably 1v9. And then Faker returned to form, just insanely clutch working together with Keria, right? So I think MVP Keria, right next to it was Faker. Just insane playmaking from the both of them. Let's move on to the next series on the docket. We have 2. We are getting there. It is almost the end of the tournament. We are at semifinals. We have T1 versus GenG and BLG versus Weibo. This is one of those semifinals that is just like, man, like what an insane semifinals. We have a rematch for BLG Weibo.
Obviously, it looks different. They have Knight. They don't have Yagao. This is also different because it's T1 and GenG matching up at Worlds for the first time. I think almost in a very long time. Like literally
At least
not
in
since
the modern GenG iteration. If
yeah
it was Samsung, then yeah, it's happened. But
yeah, not modern iteration. I don't think they have actually matched up in a very long time, if ever. So who are you taking? Who do you want to predict? Let's predict the less interesting. Let's predict BLG versus Weibo. As interesting as it is, it's not as it's a rematch.
it's not like a historic like moment kind of matchup,
Right.
right?
Weibo Gaming is kind of new to the scene. Honestly, Weibo Gaming is also Suning. So Bin actually made his finals debut on Suning.
That's true.
And then they've actually never missed a finals. So Suning made finals, Weibo made finals, and now Weibo's here again. They can make finals, and they can take it away from Bin. Maybe you shouldn't have left. But yeah, who do you got? BLG versus Weibo. Who you got? Who you got? Who you taking?
It's tough. Weibo has the magic currently.
They do.
They have just been like playing the most match. Actually, I guess BLG did too. Also play a crap ton of matches.
They're both two.
But like they've always been
teams.
underestimated, and under pressure they've been really good. I do take the team that has 3 ways to just giga carry. With if you have peak Bin, peak Elk, or peak Knight, if any of them show up, it's just disgusting, right? So it's very not controversial what I'm predicting. So I want BLG to be in the finals. I want to see Knight in a world final.
Yep.
Xiao finally got his chance last time, and it was all right. So I want to see the other side now. Can we have Knight versus Faker in the finals, for example, or Chobi?
Yeah.
That would be incredible. So yeah, I predict BLG. I don't think it's going to be super clean. Actually, no, let me take it back. So I don't think it's going to be super clean, but that doesn't mean it's going to be a 3-2. I think it's going to be a 3-0 for BLG in the sense of like I think one team will collapse.
Wow.
Because I just feel that this is a place where I don't think like Knight has been winning LPL so hard for so long. And yes, this is World, but I don't think this team has. Like, they did not look like a team into BLG in the summer finals. Is basically what I'm saying.
For Weibo, you mean?
Weibo.
Okay. Okay. You're gonna go 3-0 BLG. You're locking it in.
Yep. I'm
okay.
Wrong because apparently
that's
just how it goes these days.
No, it's fine. Hey, we're gonna be wrong together. I'm not going 3-0. I'm going 3-2 BLG. I do think it's gonna be a banger. I think. I mean, last year was 3-2, but it was Weibo Gaming who won, right? I do think Weibo Gaming. Breathe has actually been playing pretty well, but the Shy brought a little extra sauce. The Shy is a player who is the OG Bin. The Shy was Bin before Bin, right?
Yeah.
And now the Shy's gone. I don't think I've felt that about Breathe. I do not think Breathe is like on that caliber of player, and I do think that's going to be the big difference between this year and last year. I do think Knight is also much better than Yagao. Knight has his own champion pool where he can play very supportive like Yagao, but Knight can also carry. I also think that something that helped Weibo Gaming last year that doesn't help this year is that Weibo Gaming got to play double ranged bot lanes, and they were better at it than Elk and On, right? If you remember, it was a lot of Kate Lux from Light Crisp. It was a lot of Ash and Varus from Light and Crisp. They don't have that, and I do think Crisp is a lot weaker on melee supports than range supports. So I'm going to go BLG for these reasons when I'm comparing last year to this year. When I'm just looking at things from a vacuum in this year, they're both... Weibo Gaming looks better than I thought they would, and BLG looks worse than I thought they would. So it kind of evens out in that BLG came in as the favorites over Weibo, but they've kind of leveled out as the tournament has gone on, and now they're meeting in semifinals. So I do think this is a very hard match to predict for anybody. This is one of those matches where you don't bet on, right? You don't put money on this because I think it could really go either way. So I'm also gonna go BLG 3-2, and it is also a desire to see them in finals. But also I think if Weibo Gaming makes it to finals, I do think they're gonna get 3-0'd by whatever Korean team shows up, whatever it's T1 GenG, and I just don't want that.
It's also a
I
desire for the most competitive final possible.
Yeah. So I do think Weibo Gaming has a chance to have that magic and have that counter to BLG because of history and because, I don't know, just Xiaohu, man, he just shows up sometimes against other Chinese teams, and then he doesn't. Like Xiaohu is also very inconsistent, or he can just be like, Xiaohu is kind of the original Yagao, right? I think Yagao is just worse than Xiaohu, but Xiaohu is like kind of like shows up at MSI, beats everybody, doesn't show up at Worlds, beats nobody, right? Now things are kind of changing where he's showing more and more up at Worlds, but I do think Weibo Gaming, if like this is gonna be their best, like if they were to beat BLG, this will be their best series. It'll look like last year where it'll be insane. They'll look so good against BLG, and then they won't look that good in the finals. I can totally see it for Weibo, so I don't really want them to go to finals. I want BLG to make it there. So yeah, I'm going BLG. I also think a big difference is Tarzan too. Tarzan is a choker. He didn't really choke against LG. Actually played pretty well, but I don't know. Tarzan's never made it to a semifinals, right? So we'll see how it goes. He's had many chances to make it to semifinals and choked his brains off, and I don't know. Jun has shown he's been able to play under pressure pretty well. Yeah, so there you go. Okay, now let's move on to it. This has been a long. Every podcast we do is long now, huh?
Worlds is like that.
Worlds is like that. T1 versus GenG. Oh my god, this is insane. The fact that we're getting this in semifinals, this could be a finals. This could actually just be the finals, which is great because if we get BLG in the finals, then it's like we don't know what was the world finals. But T1 versus GenG is one of the most historic matchups in League of Legends history. T1 wins in
GenG.
Yep. T1 wins in 2013, Samsung wins in 2014, T1 wins in 2015, T1 wins in 2016, but barely beats Samsung in a 5-game series. Then Samsung beats T1 in 2017 for Faker's first ever international loss, or Worlds loss, right? That's, the story of League of Legends has been Samsung / GenG competing against T1 for the most accolades. And then the story changed, right? T1 kind of fell down. Samsung kind of fell down. They rebranded to GenG. GenG started, they picked up Chovy. GenG for the longest time, and Chovy couldn't take down T1 until they could. And then now T1 can't even beat GenG at all. This is the biggest League of Legends rivalry ever in history. It has been spanning since the entire history of LoL esports. So
they also named themselves KSV at some point. They were Gigadog during that era.
That was weird, yeah. That was a weird time.
Weird.
They didn't even make it to Worlds.
I believe KSV technically became Hama, but the Samsung DNA mostly went into GenG.
Yep, yeah. Well, I'm just gonna say Samsung, KSV to GenG, whatever that's pretty much been the same organization, the same roster, right? The same legacy. We'll just call it the same legacy because SKT rebranded to T1, legacy.
Yep.
And then now it's Chovy. He has to overcome his international demons. Faker is the best player ever, but Chovy is the best player right now, right? It has always been a battle between these two guys. It is insane that we are getting. It's been so long since we've gotten this matchup. Last time we got this matchup at Worlds, I'm pretty sure is in 2017. I don't think they've matched it at MSI. They've matched up obviously domestically a bunch, but I don't think they've actually matched up at Worlds since 2017.
Which is insane to think about, yeah.
It's insane to think about because they always make Worlds, right? So who are you having? Who's winning? Who are you taking?
Oh, I've been thinking about this for a while because it's like,
what is there not to think about, right? This is the biggest thing to think about.
Yeah, it's the biggest thing to think about. It's like, is it as simple as it sounds? I mean, GenG does always win, but
they do.
There was a time and place where it was Samsung versus their sister team, so white versus blue.
Yep.
And back then it was the same thing. It was like, oh well, I mean, blue always counters white domestically, so
yep.
Where is it at? I would say I want to give it to T1 because I don't think I think that yes, FlyQuest is really good in the series, but I think we saw too many warning signs to ignore from GenG.
Yep.
Yeah, that's really it. I see almost like not peak, but extremely impressive gameplay from T1 for this long, from different players too. It's not like, oh, I'm worried if Zeus is gonna int his head off or something like that. No, it's like I just see carry threats everywhere. So what can I do but say, yeah, I'm impressed, right? And I think they have. And GenG never ever does well at Worlds. I like it's not just the org anymore. It's just this core every time. I
Yep.
cannot sit there and ignore that history and be like, yeah, but they beat domestic. Domestic is different. That's just a fact.
Mhm.
So 3-2 T1, it should be a banger.
It's
T1
gonna be
should
a
be
banger.
playing. Its P1 will be playing well, and GenG will be playing worse than usual, but it still should be extremely close.
Oh, it's gonna be a banger. Yeah. I think I'm gonna have to really base my argument off of the fact that Chovy is the consistent guy. He does all of his homework right. Man, this is like
That's all its own way is a good way to describe it.
yeah, but then at the end of the day, the guy who just wakes up on the day of the tests and tests better wins. He gets the higher score.
Yeah, he doesn't doubt himself whenever he has a guess for a question. He's just like, yeah, I think it's that.
Yeah, he plays the odds, right? He feels it in the moment. T1 feels it in the moment. They show up at the end of the day when it really matters, and they're just late on their homework all year long, right? Man, this is like T1 versus FlyQuest light, right? Or TL versus FlyQuest light. Where like
I was like, I'm like, what?
TL versus FlyQuest all year long was TL just beating FlyQuest domestically over and over again. But then when it actually mattered, FlyQuest ended up coming up on top. I
Yep.
do think it's going to be the same. T1 is getting beaten down by GenG for years domestically, losing so many domestic titles. The amount of second places T1 has is kind of insane. But I'm gonna go T1 as well. I think they have magic. I think there's like this is one of those things.
This is actually their tournament.
This is their
Like,
tournament, yeah. Like
This is their
domestically, it's
domain. You
like
don't mess with them.
like T1 will win Worlds this year, perhaps, right? T1 might
Mhm.
beat the series, and then we'll talk in 2025, and I'll still predict GenG to beat T1 domestically,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
But we're at Worlds, and I just feel like it has to go to T1.
It's also the best for League Esports if we get a T1 versus LPL final.
Dude, T1 versus BLG, I need it in this final. We were robbed of it last year, and Weibo Gaming showed up and gave us a big fat goose egg, but we need it this year. We deserve it this year, okay? If we get T1 versus BLG in the finals and it goes to 5 games and it's a banger, this will rival 2022 as one of the best worlds ever, right? Like, it'll be absolutely insane.
I agree. I'm so excited.
I can't wait. I
I
hope.
should probably just take work off. What day is it on though?
I
Is
think
it
it's
a
November
weekend?
or something. Yeah, I think it's the weekend.
Hope it's a
It's like
weekend.
November 2nd or 3rd or something. But anyways, let's give a little bit. We're all giving into the narrative and drama analysis. I want to give some actual I don't know, analysis. So I think that T1 and GenG have shown that they're willing to cook. Okay, but I think one thing that's going to be a big difference is um, T1 showed that they're willing to play lane dominant. They played Caitlyn, but they're also willing to show that they're playing into heavy roaming style. So I think Bard and Pyke are this very heavy roaming style, and I think that this is going to be a big difference between T1's playstyle and GenG's playstyle. Is that T1 does this thing where, let's be honest, Faker's the GOAT, but he has a weak laning phase these days. Okay, he's old, wrist problems, sucks, but he does have a weak laning phase. How they've remedied that is that Keria plays Bard and recently Pyke, and he gets Prio bot lane with a lane dominant AD carry like Caitlyn, and he roams mid and he puts pressure on mid lane to basically like help Faker get one push in or get one chunk off, and then that's enough for Faker to stabilize his laning phase. I think that's going to be a big deal. Lehens has not shown kind of that, right? Lehens has shown that he's going to rotate at the time it makes sense for grubs or for a lane swap. Yeah, pretty much that's it. So I think that's going to be a big deal. I don't know how GenG is going to play around that.
Mhm.
GenG should know that T1 has basically been doing this like all year long, and they did it pretty much all through the gauntlet. So that's going to be interesting. How they're going to pinch, whose pool they're going to pinch. I don't know if they should target Keria, but maybe consider it because Keria just does not look as good on the traditional supports, right? Leona, Rel, Alistair, not really Keria's jam. So I wonder, do you ever target Keria and take away the Bard and just see what happens? Take away the Rakan, just see what happens. So that's one thing. Another thing is I think Faker has not been favoring pretty much non-playmaking mids, right? There's no he's not going to play Smolder, he's not going to play Yone, he's not going to play Orianna or Syndra. Faker is going to play Sylas. He's going to play Galio. He's going to play a mid laner that can roam, essentially. So I really think Smolder is going to be a big deal for GenG. As boring as it is, you just poke him in the mid lane with Smolder, and you farm plates, and you scale, and it doesn't matter how much you roam or how big your gold lead is, you just get executed with true damage. So those are kind of like my two big points and differences between these two teams, and it's going to be interesting. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Yeah, any thoughts you want to give on T1 versus GenG before we close this podcast out?
I think one thing I'll give on that, besides all the narrative, is I do think Guma's playing well, and I think that he is just summarily a better AD carry when it matters than Pays is. But I also think it doesn't matter. That side of the matchup doesn't matter as much, because if we've noticed how things have been going, it kind of seems like the AD carries are just getting clobbered in this tournament.
Yeah, unless you're in Kaisa. Yeah.
Yeah, because you have like tools that can actually play against it. But for the most part, it's just always you like spawn in, and then like the MF especially just gets slapped across the face every time she spawns. And I think it's really noticeable. I haven't seen a ADC related meta that's been to this extent before, where it's like, wow, you really just can't play the game if you're playing AD carry, right? Yep. So I think in that sense, that is something in GenG's favor, where traditionally Pays is not an inter. It's not bad, but it was something that like was a notable difference between the two teams. So I think if anything, that maybe throws it off of it, where it's like, if they neutralize Guma, there's a lot of room for GenG to just gap hard here, if they can play to like 95% of what they normally do.
Yeah, maybe. I think we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I think there's a couple other points I can make, but then let's move on. We got some other news to talk about before, and then go close it out. I'm hungry.
I'm hungry as well.
Canyon, he's got the Nidalee. Owner can play Nidalee, but we'll see what Owner's answer will be into Nidalee. Are they banning it, or are they letting Nidalee through? And in what situations are they letting it through? And will Owner play into it? I think Owner has his own thing where he's the only one playing Poppy Jungle. Peanut played one Poppy Jungle, but I expected him to play more. Poppy Jungle is great because both top laners, Keen and Zeus are willing to play Jax. But if you got Poppy Flex, right, support jungle top, I think Poppy is going to be a very powerful champion that's going to, be important in the series. And then the Yone, right? The Yone is a big deal. Who bans it? Does it just get banned the entire series on red side every game? Or do people consider the Yone Aurora trade? In LNG versus Weibo, we saw Yone traded for Aurora. It looked better for the Aurora by a lot, actually. So, but the thing is different about T1 than every other team is that Faker doesn't play Yone. It's actually Zeus that plays Yone.
True.
So, does GenG ever consider giving Yone over because it's not Yone mid? Yone top is a lot less of a problem than Yone mid, because Yone mid can start influencing the map immediately, where Yone top is kind of like left on an island for a while, right? So I think that's an interesting thing to think about. I also think T1 doesn't play Aurora, period, where you have to ban Aurora against GenG. So going to be very interesting. I also am just curious if that GenG, they struggled against FlyQuest, but I do think that they benefited from beating FlyQuest in that now they're going to feel unleashed to maybe try some stuff out. They already tried the Kassadin, they tried the Twitch earlier. T1 tried the pike and stuff like that. I would be curious to see if GenG and T1 really start cooking. I think that's going to be a very interesting thing to see. Something for GenG that I do want to see them cook in is Chovy is known for Champion Ocean. Faker used to be known for the Champion Ocean, right? But like they've both gone to different styles where Faker's on the more supportive style and Chovy's playing Kassadin as cooking, right? Chovy is playing,
that's true.
it's on the other side of cooking. He's playing the Giga Mega scaling, the most greedy you can get. I want to see it. I want to see these styles clash. Like I want to see Faker has to blind pick something and he picks something that's supportive in mid lane that's something that can get abused, and Chovy abuses it to the maximum, right? We already have Smolder, we already have Kassadin. Kale, you mentioned earlier, right? Maybe Kale's is something that gets picked up. I don't think Kale's very good, but I wanna know what these teams cook up because I think if both these teams play standard, I think GenG should win, right? I think
I can do is 2 Smolder games in a row.
Yeah, fuck. Oh man, yeah. Because T1, I think they have to cook if they want to beat GenG, right? And I think they're going to cook, and I think that their cooking is going to be the reason why T1 wins this series. GenG, if they wake up, if they realize what FlyQuest almost did to them, they'll realize that they need to counter cook. They need to counter cook if they want to, if they want to beat them, because I think the narrative is that T1's going to win. Most people are going to want T1 to win.
Yep.
All right. I'm dying. I'm choking like Chovy. Oh my god. Let's talk about one last thing. Jojo Pune to Mad Lions. Give me your quick thoughts. Send it. What the hell?
It's a huge miss for NA. I really think it's unfortunate we lose such a high level talent. I think it's a big problem to lose good players.
Yep.
But it's a really good thing for NA in the sense of we get visibility, we can up level. One of our players can just get way better now.
Yep.
Because he's playing in a region that has caps in it.
Yep.
Can compete with them on a daily, weekly basis, whatever.
Yep.
Also EU solo queue. I think it will be a great experiment almost, if anything. I would love to see the result of it. I think that it is an. I think, who did we ever import? We've exported. We've exported Cody's son and Dardoch, but to LFL. Nothing to the pro scene, right?
Not
and
really.
Again, this is a guy who's gotten offers from lower level, but Korean teams too. So in that sense, I'm happy for him. I still won't cheer for Mad Lions, but when they come internationally against us, but it will be hilarious if he loses to one of our teams. And if they start doing well, if he's really the difference maker, that's great. I would say from outside the emotional side, though, I do think that for Mad Lions' sake, it is a good move in the sense that they were missing a strong carry mid laner. Friscali was not that. And I think that it fills in something that they were lacking.
Yep.
But I would also say that he's not the shot caller that they need. So is Eloya really good enough for that? I don't know. I've seen so many times where I refuse to describe what they've been doing as shot calling, good shot calling internationally, right? Yeah. So I like Jojo. He will have pop-up plays. I bet they're going to look really crazy during the regular season because they've got Eloya, one of the best domestic regular season junglers ever for EU, and they've got Jojo, right?
Yep.
I think and they've already been winning / doing well, even in a world where G2 has their super roster, right? So in that sense, it's hype, it's cool. I don't think that roster, unless it has more changes that get announced, is winning. Is going to be the difference. I don't think Jojo plus Eloya is the thing that revives the West and gets us huge wins against Eastern teams,
or even takes over G2 domestically, right?
Right. Exactly.
So we can talk a bit about the G2 roster changes as well. But I think for Jojo and Eloya, my take is that this team on average will look more interesting, look more flashy, and look more explosive and be more dominant on average domestically. But let's think about the results of Mad Lions, okay? At the end of the day. So the way they got there was shaky. But at the end of the day, Mad Lions was the 3rd seed. They made it out of play-ins. And they got knocked out of Swiss stage with a bunch of rookies. Let's think about this roster with Jojo, right? How much better are they going to do than exactly that? That's pretty darn good for Mad Lions, pretty much, right? Mad Lions is just under the two perennial teams, Fnatic and G2. I can see this Mad Lions. Their peak is going to be taking Fnatic's spot as the second best team in the region and taking a few more games off at Worlds. That's as far as I'm going to give this Mad Lions credit, and maybe that's good enough for them, and maybe that's worth it. But yeah, it's pretty solid, right? They had a solid year this year for Mad Lions when you consider what could have happened, as in they could have missed Worlds. They were this close to missing Worlds. All I think that's going to change next year is they'll be more consistent. They're more likely to make it to Worlds. They'll have a better chance at beating the best, as in G2 domestically, and they'll probably take a few more games off at Worlds if they make it there, right? So I think that's pretty good. That's pretty fine. I think that makes sense for me. I think,
Do you think
Jojo
PM will become a better player in EU?
I think he will. I think if only it's because he will be forced to adapt. I think he got a little too comfortable in NA, right? I don't even think it's about Mad Lions. I think it's just because he's leaving. I think it's just because he tarnished his own reputation here, / he got his reputation tarnished, right? Because we talked about it, right? It's a mix of he was actually late / he actually has health issues, right? Yeah. So, yeah, I think he will improve. Just because it's a change of pace, it's a change of environment. He's has a new kick in the butt.
To the foreign environment, different people, different culture.
Yep.
First time probably out of the States for work. By definition, it's his first time out of the States for work. He can't have worked out of the States.
Yeah, right.
I hope.
Yeah, I mean, he can't. He started working right out of high school, right? He was a Fortnite streamer, Fortnite player. So yeah, I think this will be good for JoJo. I hope that he does this. Is in EU for a year or two, and he comes back and he kicks ass, right? I would love that.
It's like Core JJ left home for a bit.
Yep. Won Worlds, come back, hangs out.
Casual. So yeah,
MSI Finals.
Wins Worlds for okay, but I will say, and this is in the contract for the Mad Lions signing.
Yeah.
There's a clause that if he wins Worlds, NA won Worlds.
Yeah, so. It's true. NA homegrown. Yeah, we win Worlds.
I don't make the rules. That's just how it is.
Hey, I'm just saying, lots of people were saying FlyQuest was 2-5 Europe, so that was a win for them just as much as a win for NA against GenG. Okay? We take those. I don't care.
True. We take those.
we share. We can share, okay? We're not playing against each other, right? We can share. But yeah, pretty exciting. Let's talk about the G2 roster changes, and then we'll close this out. I am tired. But they did it. They actually did it. They got rid of Mike and Mick. Oh my god, I said Mike and Yicky.
Mike and Yicky X.
Okay, that was Oh my god. They got rid of Yike and they got rid of Mickey X. Their jungler is Skewmond. He's basically just Yike 2 years ago, right? He's in the he's in EU Masters. He's considered one of the hypest talents. Never played professionally. They're just going to take him, mold him for their own. So I expect him to just basically be Yike when he was a rookie, he was pretty good when Yike was a rookie. They just won everything, right? Obviously domestically, but internationally, I don't think this is going to change much unless Skewmon becomes something that I've never even imagined. And then Labrov, I do think on a consistency level, this is an upgrade over Mickey, as in Mickey makes game-losing throws. But I do think G2 is going to miss out on the game-winning dubs, on the game-winning mega plays.
To beat international teams.
Yeah. So that means that we're going to have to rely more so on the consistency of Broken Blade, Caps, and Hansama. I think that my biggest problem with this team in G2 is Hansama. I think I watched an interview with Broken Blade where he said Hansama is one of their main shot callers. Hansama is one of their most consistent carries, not in the fact that he has big hands, he does the big damage, and he 1v9s you, like someone like Elk or Masu, but he's the guy who tells you where to be and where to go so that he can get resources and he can fight the enemy, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is just honestly inherently one of G2's flaws. It's one of their biggest benefits of why they're good so now, but it's why they're hard capped.
It makes them predictable and limited too in how they can play, right? Like their lane assignments, the resource assignment, their priority of will he be playing a support AD carry? Probably rarely, if not, because of the way they play. I think it caps them in that sense.
Yeah, I also think it caps them in that Hansama just doesn't have the hands, right? It doesn't matter how good your shot calling is that okay, so I was actually thinking about this sort of analogy in the shower. But
You're thinking about Hans Sama in the shower?
I was thinking about Hansama in the shower. It was because I was listening to a podcast episode in the shower from like something. But um Hansama, okay, let's put all of Hansama's stats and quantify them, okay? Like a
Okay.
little stats bar, okay?
Yeah, like a
Hansama,
stat sheet, yeah.
yeah, stat sheet, okay? He's got great macro, he's got great shot calling, he's got good team play, consistency, he's got all that, right? Where he lacks is his stat bar in the mechanics. That's where it's lower when you compare it to the Eastern AD carries, okay?
Yes.
Eastern AD carries, they might have worse shot calling than Hansama, they might have worse macro, they might have like a less flexible champ pool than Hansama. But the mechanics stat is so much higher for these Eastern AD carries that it doesn't matter. It overcomes the things that they're lacking. And then the rest of the team that these Eastern teams have, the rest of the team that the Eastern carries are paired with, they make up for it, right? So I do think the Hansama is capped in that sense. Unless his mechanics somehow magically get a lot better, I do think he's limited in that the reason why Perks was the last AD carry on G2 to look like an international superstar was because he had all these things, right? His draft flexibility was extremely high, higher than anybody's. He could play Syndra bot, Yasuo bot, but he also had the macro and the shot calling, right? As we know Perks to have. But then also his mechanics were actually on par with Eastern AD carries. So that's just it, right? The reason why Yeon and Masu look so good is that they're rookies and they're probably lacking draft diversity. They're probably lacking macro and experience in shot calling, but their mechanics are able to compete with the Eastern AD carries that we can cover their bases with players like Inspired, with players like CoreJJ, right? So yeah, that's just my criticism of Hansama and Western AD carries in general. Is in that position specifically, you need to have the mechanics be your best attribute. Otherwise, you're not going to beat Eastern teams. Yeah.
I would also add on it also the rumor slash maybe confirmed Calist offer that G2
Oh,
gave.
yeah.
KC's challenger guy,
Yeah.
or whatever you call that league. So basically, it sounds hilarious, but they said they would trade Yike, Hansama, and Mickey X
For
for
just
Calist,
go.
and they would pay a buyout.
Yeah.
And KC said, Carmine Corp said no.
Yeah.
But so like, I think this is also just like they floated it. I don't think they were like really serious about it. And also the reality is, if you read the article, it's not that KC was dumb. They didn't want like, you know, a core known amount of very good G2 players for just one challenger prospect. They also can't afford them. Like it's not like
they have to buy their contracts.
Yeah, you have to buy them, right? And you have to
Yeah.
pay them too, even if you bought the contract. So like, all of that to say, Callista, maybe he is the next coming, right? He might be the guy who has the hands. I think in LEC right now, at the top level, shown recently, Supa's the only one who can do that and be better than Hansama and give him to the next level. Otherwise, yeah, Hansama he's good. He's pretty good, but he won't get you the hands you need to really go toe to toe, right? Masu is just better than him, hands wise at least.
Yeah, hands wise for sure.
At least he might not have the champ pool, he might not have the shot calling, but you don't need it if you have Inspired.
Exactly.
The champ pool will be nice, but and then maybe upset ever gets good again. But like again, there's so few European AD carries currently who have that level, right?
Yeah.
So G2's in a tough place too. They can't really replace him easily.
That's why I almost wish that they got a rookie ADC and a rookie support, and then they got a veteran jungler, or they got I don't know. Like, I feel like G2 is missing some shot calling somewhere, and they need some fresh hands. They're getting fresh hands in their jungler, but like, we're both junglers. You don't need to be a mechanical beast in the jungle compared to ADC. Okay, you need to have mechanics everywhere in any role in League of Legends, but ADC is the most mechanically defining, and I think that's where they need to find the talent, right? That's why it works for both, Yeon and Masu, is that you got veterans elsewhere to support in the least mechanically intensive roles, so that you can have your mechanical prodigy in the place it matters, which is AD carry, and I think that G2 is missing out on that idea. Yeah. So
has there ever been a recent bad AD carry who's won Worlds? like hands wise. It was nope.
LWX.
Okay, maybe that's actually
that's
a good
it.
one.
But that's it
DRX,
though. That's
DRX was
had Deft.
Deft, no way.
No, he has good
EDG
hands.
was Viper.
Yep, good
That
hands.
one was Ghost.
Ghost. Okay, but Ghost, that was in a different time, I think. Where Ghost,
Meta
wise, it made sense for him to play Jhin in supportive, and it doesn't matter how good you're like, you know, in 2020. Just Showmaker and I mean Canyon. Okay, in 2020, jungle was so broken that actually he was playing Kindred Graves every game, so it is different.
Yeah, you had a real AD carry. So
you had a real AD carry in jungle.
AD carry with hands won worlds that year.
In jungle, exactly, right?
And then there was Ruler, Bang, Bang.
Yeah.
Samsung Galaxy was Imp. Yeah, I mean it's always Bebe. Even when 2012, like they were always good AD carries for at least modern League of Legends.
They had to have mega hands, right? Jackie Love. Yep. Yeah, I think one of the worst
skirt by usually.
Yeah, one of the worst AD carries to ever win Worlds is LWX. And that's also different too, right? Because one of the reasons why they won that was because Doinby and Tien, they were just running. Jungle was so OP back then. Jungle mid was so OP back then.
Literally a jungle mid duo won Worlds that year. Their top laner was not bad. He was not amazing. He was
I mean,
support too.
You also look at actually from 2018 to like 2020, Jungle ran Worlds, right? IG was Ning. Okay, yes, everybody talks about Rookie in the Shy, but let's be honest, it was Ning.
Ning won that series. Like
he won the World Finals.
Single-handedly took Broxa and he was like, "Yeah, you're nothing."
Yeah, you're my bitch, exactly. And then in 2019, it was Tien over Yankos. Let's be honest, right? Yankos was great, but Tien was unbeatable on Lee Sin. And then 2020 it was Canyon. He was playing Kindred Graves every game, just smurfing on you.
There came a point where I think EDG JJ should have been the finals MVP 2021, right? But they were like it would be 4 years in a row where the final MVP was a jungler.
Yeah.
And so they gave it to Scout. It was close, right? But it was definitely the JJ show that he was getting against Canyon.
Yeah, he was. And he was
just about to win 2 worlds in a row. Like it was ridiculous, right? So yeah, it is usually a jungle diff. Huh.
Yep. It is,
yeah. Pioshik had a good. He didn't carry, but he had a good finals.
I gotta say, okay, 2022 he did have a good finals minus the smites, but
the smites were just do stick in your mind.
Yeah, I do think the pivotal matchup in 2022 Worlds between DRX and T1 is actually support. It was Beryl versus Keria, and Beryl came out with the 3 years experience, 3 finals in a row experience versus Keria's first finals, right? Yeah, it was support for sure. Beryl was nuts. Was unhinged in the draft. The frickin' Bard, baby. And now Keria's a Bard one trick, you know? Yep. All right. Well,
all right.
Let's call it. That's it. That's the podcast. Another 2-hour banger. I hope you all loved it. I hope you all listened to it. We'll catch you for the quarterfinals next week. Sorry, we'll catch you for the semifinals next week. We just finished the quarterfinals. FlyQuest is the best Western team to ever exist this year. And West NA greater than EU. NA greater than EU.
Is definitely greater than EU now, because now you can't say we fluked into the finals or the quarterfinals. I'm sorry. The other world line was when we went to the finals, unfortunately.
Yeah. FlyQuest did not fluke their way in, and we proved it by taking GenG to 5 games. Yep, there we go. Congrats to us. Pat ourselves on the back. NA's the best.
The rest of the world is just extra credit. We get banger matchups. And NA already got exactly what they wanted.
Yeah. I mean, last year, too, it wasn't even a fluke. We beat G2 to get to corners, right?
Oh, absolutely.
We just are not fluking anymore. We're just legit.
We're legit. Reality, guys.
It's reality. And it's greater than EU, right? You're taking our players. We're taking the wins against you guys. All right. Try not to be too toxic, because you know we want to be, but we won't. All right. We'll see you on the next episode. Peace.